feel like we need like a standardized intro. You know,
You're the intro guy.
hey Drew, how are
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
you? Doing well. Welcome to. We're starting to get up there in terms of numbers. Like
I don't even. I've so lost count of what episode it is. I have to go look on the episodes on YouTube.
we've outlasted the standard. Hey, let's start a podcast, do it 10 episodes,
Yeah,
and then we get bored with it.
not exactly like we're popular, but
We have fun with it.
yeah, it's for fun.
So welcome back to another one. We're in playoff zone, folks.
We're in playoff zone. Full playoff preview. We're gonna run down some stuff quick, and then we'll get fully. It's gonna be mostly playoff stuff,
Yeah,
but we're gonna run some stuff down quick before we start.
it's what I look forward to the
Yeah,
most. The
we've been
playoff
waiting for this for
preview.
so long. Especially once the fantasy hockey season ended, it was kind of like, okay,
You got like 2, 3 weeks.
maybe like a
whatever it
week and a
is.
half, 2 weeks. It's kind of like, let's get moving here. So Leafs, we'll get into the playoff stuff, but just quick to close out the season, we had Montreal on Saturday, Carolina Sunday, Buffalo Tuesday, and Detroit Thursday.
Yeah.
Tough game Saturday against the Habs, 1-0 in overtime. They get the win.
And to be fair, this is a relatively hot Montreal team.
Yep, Dobish kept them in the game. We
Yeah.
dominated the game.
Like they barely got to double-digit
I-
shots.
I-
in the third.
Was impressed with Stolar's ability to keep his mind in the game because as a goalie, it's very difficult to be in a game when you're not busy.
Yeah.
Like as a goalie, you kind of want a middle ground, but you would prefer to be super busy than not busy at all because when it comes, you're not really in the game, right?
You don't want to be ice.
So I thought he did a good job of when he needed to be there, he was there. And then obviously that was a night we were short of D, so Marner played a lot of D that night.
Which was interesting because like the rumor was Lawton had volunteered.
Yeah. I think they kind of mixed it up. I don't think he played D the whole night. So that was a big win. That was kind of stopping Montreal from clinching their spot. I think they just needed a win.
Yeah.
And they didn't get it. Sunday in Carolina, I didn't catch much of this, but it seemed pretty dominant. Pretty easy 4-1 win. I don't know if you caught any of this. It was Masters Sunday, so.
Yeah, that's what we're watching. Because it was an early game too in the Masters.
It was an early game, and the Masters went to a playoff, so it was kind of like didn't get to it. If it was an important Leafs game, I would have tuned in, but it wasn't really a big deal. So, 4-1 win against a good team. Carolina hasn't really had much to play for a long time now. So they've been pretty much locked into that 2 seed in the Metro. And then Buffalo on Tuesday, we dominated that night as well. Stolarz gets another shutout.
Yeah,
and
really nice to see.
And we end up taking it 4-0. It was close most of the game, but we kind of blew it open in the third. And that was the night we clinched our first Atlantic Division title. I believe they said it was only the third time the Leafs have won the division since expansion.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy. And I don't really include the year they won the Canadian division during the COVID season. That's not really.
That's not a real season.
Yeah,
that's a heavy asterisk season.
Yeah. And then Thursday night, meaningless game against the Wings. We did have our full lineup in because of all the injury issues. You had McCabe out, you had Kampf out, OEL was out. So they couldn't bring people up because they're right up against the cap. So they couldn't really do it. And you couldn't put those guys on IR because then they would be out during the playoffs. They have to miss. I believe it's under 10 games left in the season. You can't put a player on IR.
Okay.
I believe it's something like that. It's something around that. Anyway, it wasn't our best night. I don't think they were. It's not really that important of a game.
Your heart's not going to be in.
Yeah, but they come back down 3-1. They win it in overtime. Scott Law. Yeah, Tanev scored with less than 2 seconds left. Yeah, and Myers had a nice goal.
I didn't end up seeing.
I think I saw it quickly. But he had a nice goal, and then Lawton gets the OT winner, a little confidence booster.
Yeah.
So obviously the keynotes this week are Leafs win the division. That we talked about previously. We want to really avoid. I know Ottawa's not going to be an easy out, but you really want to avoid Florida and Tampa. The past 5 years, the Eastern Conference runs through the state of Florida.
And just being like, you earned it.
Yeah.
Like, that's big. That's important.
And that's the difference. The playing style maybe allowed them to get there. There's a couple other things. Tampa's start wasn't great. They've obviously played a lot better in the second half, and Florida's had a lot of injury issues this year, so that probably contributed to it. But the style of play for the Leafs is probably the biggest factor, and then winning the division through a full 82 game season, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple other notes. Marner got his 100th point, his first 100-point season. I believe he's only the fourth Leaf to ever reach 100 points.
It was like Dougie Gilmore.
It was Daryl Sittler, Doug Gilmore, and Austin Matthews were the first three. And then Matthews also reached his 400th career goal.
It was a play after. It wasn't the same play, was it? No, it wasn't, because Marner scored.
No, Marner scored a
was, like,
goal
right
every 100.
after.
Yeah, it was quickly after.
It was funny watching them play because you could
Yeah.
see them just trying to.
It was pretty much like trying to force feed Marner to Matthews so that they got it on the same
Yeah.
play, so that Marner could get the point and Matthews could get the goal. But it ended up being Matthews to Marner for Marner's 100th point,
Yeah.
and then they got the goal. Matthews got the goal. Other than that, yeah, they were trying to win the division, but I don't think it was like, if you don't, it's not the end of the world.
It's a nice to have. It's not
Yeah.
a must have.
It's not a must-have. Other than that, it wasn't really too much of it wasn't a crazy week or anything. So it was kind of just, let's run through this quick.
The biggest thing I think, well, we're still on Leafs.
Yeah, if you have something to say, yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, like, okay, we've had McCabe out.
It sounds like he'll be ready for game 1.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, Camp, I haven't really heard anything. OEL, I haven't heard anything.
There's still some components that are like, this feels somewhat mission critical.
Yeah.
To have these guys back in order to feel really comfortable.
We'll get there once we get into the previews, but that could be a contributing factor. But I think Camp you want, but I think you can survive without him. I would get him fully healthy before I put him back in the lineup.
Yeah.
McCabe and OEL, especially McCabe. You want McCabe Tanev as that shutdown pair. You need that. And OEL on the third pairing. Like, there's not going to be a lot of teams who have a defenseman of that high of a caliber on the third pairing. Right? So, Mermis did a decent job this week. He came up.
I didn't notice him a whole lot.
Which is exactly what you want.
That's fine.
It's exactly what you want from a third pairing defenseman.
I remember being who's that on the bench.
Yeah. So, anything else on the Leafs? Kind of for the past week. We'll get into the playoff stuff.
For the past week, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. How into conspiracies are you?
Yeah.
No, other than that, the week was the week. It wasn't mind bending.
Yeah.
But clinching
we talked about the Florida stuff last week a little bit, so yeah. Okay. Outside of that, we'll get to some quick notes. I just wanted to shout out the Western Michigan Broncos win the national championship for the first time in their history, which is cool to see a smaller school win.
Never even heard.
Western Michigan, good for them. I think that was their first national championship in any sport since like the 50s when they won like cross country or something. So it's not like a massive high power school, right? And I believe they said not one player on their team got paid NIL money this year.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive to do that with all those big schools tossing all that big money out to all the big names.
That's just rallying.
That's even in college hockey, that's what wins, the teams. You look at Denver, they don't have a lot of high profile names, but they're always there, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have the schools like BU who made the final. Michigan's usually a big school, Minnesota's a big school. They're always there.
Yeah, Minnesota.
But it seems that most of the time, the teams that win are the teams that have the biggest well-rounded game. Quinnipiac, a school like that as well. They've won quite a bit recently. Those types of schools. Yeah. But just shout out Western Michigan. Good for them. They dominated BU in that final. We touched on the semifinal last week.
Yeah.
So just shout out to them. And then we're in the CHL playoffs right now. So once we get to the end of that, we'll touch on that a little bit more. Windsor is up. Did they win last night?
I'm unaware. Where they were up what?
Windsor was up 3-1. I believe they played last night, Game 5. So let's see what happened there. Because it's the Windsor-Kitchener matchup.
Don't count Kitchener out. They might have done it.
Kitchener won.
There we go.
So we got a series. It was 3-0. Kitchener stays alive game 4 and game 5. Game 6 comes Sunday in Kitchener. Will your mom be working it? She's working the election.
I'll be working it.
Yeah. So good series there, and we'll touch on the other leagues as well once we get maybe into the final and into the Mem Cup.
Yeah.
So some NHL notes just to get through before we get to playoff previews here. Anaheim, just found out this morning, Anaheim is not, they didn't say fired, but they said they're not bringing back head coach Greg Cronin, which seems interesting to me because they took a step this year.
And there's no one that hit the market that's...
Maybe there's somebody out there that they're saying, like, if this guy comes available, we want him.
You think Tortorella would do well?
I don't know. I'm not sure that's the guy they're thinking of. There's David Carl from Denver University. He won the World Juniors back-to-back with U.S., won national championships, always there. His name has been bounced around a lot in the NHL. Now, he has said it would take a lot for him to go to the NHL because he likes his situation and he has a young family. He's a young coach still.
Denver to California?
I'm not sure. That's just the first name that popped in my head. That's a big name out there.
It seems like they made strides, so it just seems like, why are you taking that?
I feel like it could be similar to maybe St. Louis, where they kind of like, they saw Montgomery, and it wasn't anything the previous coach did. It was just kind of like, this guy is the guy, and we want him. Yeah, so they just went and got him.
But I'm
trying to think anyone else that's a big name coach out there outside of Torts. I don't think Anaheim is the type of... I think both ways. I don't think Anaheim would want Torts. I don't think Torts would want Anaheim.
No.
It's young, skilled players.
Yeah.
I would have it's not really a fit.
No.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was interesting. Maybe they think he was there for that period to work with the young guys. Maybe they need somebody else to bring them to the next level.
Maybe they think he's hit his ceiling.
Yeah.
And just looking for
that could be what it is. They had a decent season, obviously. Maybe they wanted a bigger step than what they made, but they've made strides from what they've been. Yeah. So maybe in the standings, they're not that much higher than what they were, but the points are a lot higher.
If the Ducks...
And the Ducks didn't get eliminated till like the last 2 weeks of the season. So it wasn't like...
Last year was always like, you always felt like he was going to run over.
Yeah.
Easy wins.
Yeah.
This season it was like, no, you actually have to show up.
Yeah. So, and they're a very young team.
Yeah.
So they obviously traded Fowler away. Yeah. So they're kind of going in that direction.
Their bets are on the way in.
They were making room to get like Zellweger's in the lineup every night, Minchikov, Lacombe. Like Zellweger and Minchikov were kind of healthy scratched a lot with Fowler in the lineup. So it's kind of like making room for those guys to be in the lineup every night.
Thinking back to that Trouba trade and then the decor that they actually have, it actually, it may have been a really smart.
It was more of a righty lefty thing.
Yeah.
With Fowler and Trouba, just to make room for the guys coming through. That's what it was. Because Fowler was blocking spots for those guys to come through. Yeah. Right. So, and you're not going to scratch Cam Fowler, right? So, who's been very good in St. Louis since he's gone there.
Yeah.
So, okay. A couple other things, a couple retirement announcements. Obviously, we already knew Marc-Andre Fleury, who's going to be in the playoffs. Maybe we'll see him there. He won't be the starter, but you never know. Minnesota's big underdogs against Vegas, so he maybe gets a shot later in the series if it's out of hand. Who else? Pat Maroon, Jack's favorite player. Sticking in Chicago, Alec Martinez announced his retirement. 3-time Cup winner. 2 with LA, 1 with Vegas. A very solid defenseman.
Yeah.
Good for him. And Sharks captain Logan Couture also announced his retirement.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So he had a lot of injury issues at the end of his career. But back in the early to mid 2010s was a very good player.
Yeah.
Obviously, unfortunately, injuries kind of hampered him. Oh, breaking news!
Anaheim Ducks?
No, breaking news. The New York Rangers have fired head coach Peter Laviolette. Not really shocking after that season.
But interesting that
they waited this long.
Yeah.
Maybe it was kind of just, let's get through the season, fresh start.
Yeah.
Not shocking that it
Live
happened.
reaction.
Live reaction. Breaking news.
News of-
Interesting. Not a surprise, like at all.
Time to move on.
I think it's
Time to kind of be
the
like,
Rangers aren't young enough that they're going to be full rebuild, so it's kind of retool, and maybe the Ducks take a look at Laviolette. I don't think it won't take him much. It won't take him long to find a job if he wants one.
Great coach.
Yeah, he's been in the league a long time. He's well respected, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
So anyway, congrats to Martinez and Couture on great careers. I don't know if Couture never ended up getting it done because he was in San Jose his whole career, but he was on Team Canada, I believe, for at least one of those tournaments. I believe for sure the 2016 World Cup. Maybe he might have been on the 2014 Olympic team. Yeah, so a very good player, good two-way player. Couple notes in Winnipeg. They have locked up a couple players. Alex Iafallo returns on a 3-year, $10.99 million deal. Comes out to $3.66 million AAV. Solid value. Good depth player.
Yeah.
And they bring back Neil Pionk, who just returned from injury, to a 6-year, $42 million deal. Comes out to $7 million AAV.
A little bit of a premium,
maybe because the cap's going up.
He's a good player.
Yeah, good, solid. That's a playoff guy.
Yeah.
So that's the type of defenseman you want come playoff time. So Winnipeg locks up some depth pieces, some important pieces.
Yeah.
Maybe not depth for Pionk, but
yeah,
Iafallo
I always said
is still young as well, so he could.
I always thought he was young. I don't know why. Anyway,
sticking Winnipeg. Bad news in Winnipeg is Nikolai Ehlers is out week to week, so I'm not sure how long he'll be out. Doesn't help them. Couple of other injury things. Just found out yesterday. Jason Robertson is out week to week. He's for sure missing game 1, which is tonight. Colorado Dallas. So that's big. Dallas has some troubles. Some Heiskanen an injury. Seguin. It sounds like Seguin might play, but he hasn't played in a long time.
He hasn't played in months.
Yeah, so it's gonna be. I don't know if he's gonna play game 1, but it sounds like he's
skating.
He's gonna be there at some point this series.
Okay.
Speaking of that Colorado Dallas series, we talked about it last week. Gabriel Landeskog had his conditioning stint with the Colorado Eagles of the AHL. Scored a goal.
Yeah.
It was an ugly one, but it went in.
It was cool to see the guys in the room.
His first goal in over 3 years.
Unbelievable.
So, great to see him back, and he has since rejoined. His conditioning stint has been terminated. He is with the big club. So I'm not sure if he's going to play game 1, but he will play at some point. The Avs. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to touch on for the notes, did you see Matt Martin's interview?
No.
So Matt Martin, his future's kind of up in the air, whether it's with Long Island or even just staying in the NHL altogether.
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even sure he was in the league.
He's been kind of in and out of the lineup. He doesn't play as much as he used to. But he's with the Islanders since he left the Leafs there. He was with the Leafs. I believe it was Matthews' rookie season.
Yeah.
And he's been in New York, Long Island since then. So he's been there quite a while now. It was it's not that type of interview you see a lot in hockey. It was an emotional interview. Kind of just asking him about his time in New York and
acknowledging his career.
And he got a little emotional.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see. He enjoyed his
guy.
Yeah, just a great. Did his job, was never lighting the world on fire, but was a kind of the old guard.
Is he a non-visor guy?
That's what I was about to say. Matt Martin, one of the last non-visor guys, is leaving the league. If he does leave, we don't know. We haven't heard anything official. It doesn't. If he does stay in the league, it doesn't sound like he's staying with the Islanders based on that interview. But
hard role.
Yeah,
he's been around a while.
He's been around a long time. That his role, even though fighting has made a little bit of a comeback, his only fighting role is kind of dead.
Yeah,
you see it with Reeves in Toronto. that role's kind of dead.
You need to be more than just that.
You can fight, but you need to be able to do other things as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, it was nice to see. Just he appreciated his time. He loved his time on Long Island.
Now, I believe there's other stuff happening in Long Island too, with Lou. Isn't Lou gone now?
I think that was fake news.
Is that fake news?
I think it was fake news. I saw that too.
I saw a headline.
I saw that too, but that's fake news. I'll look it up here for you.
I don't know. I like Matt Martin. Like,
yeah,
just seemed like a solid guy. You saw him do some interviews. He seemed like he liked to have fun.
Yeah, he's not. He's still
like
there.
A good locker room guy.
Yeah. Another thing about Matt Martin here. Let me find it. He is a Windsor, Ontario native.
Is he really?
I thought for sure, but I wanted to just confirm it for sure. So good for Matt. Good career. Local boy. Represented the Leafs a little bit.
Yeah.
So I hope whatever he ends up doing and whatever's next,
well.
good luck to him. If he does end up retiring or if he'll go somewhere else, I have a hard time seeing him sign somewhere else. I think this might be it.
I don't know. Big flop.
If he does, it's maybe like a minor league deal or he goes to Europe or something,
and
right?
At that point,
yeah.
You're probably doing
yeah. Okay, that's all I got for the notes. Maybe some quick end of season notes that hadn't been wrapped up last week. Since we were last on, we had 7 of 8 teams in the East. I believe Ottawa had clinched at that point.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. So Maple Leafs, breaking news. McCabe will play game 1 tomorrow night. OEL is questionable. So he's a possibility.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm very happy McCabe's.
At least McCabe is back for sure. Back to the notes here, end of season notes. Since we last were on, Montreal locked up the last playoff spot. Now Montreal was hot, but they slowed down a little bit.
It was a battle.
And Columbus came close.
Yeah.
Columbus kind of got cold when Montreal got hot, and then they swapped, and Columbus got hot when Montreal got cold, and they only missed by 2 points. So it came down to the wire. Montreal clinched, I believe it was Wednesday night.
I think it was Carolina. Was it?
Yes, they beat Carolina 4-2. And so Columbus obviously would have needed to win Thursday night, which they beat the Islanders 6-1. So if Montreal lost in regulation, Columbus would have been in.
Different playoff.
Yeah.
Picture.
Columbus would have been in. Great season for Columbus. I know they just came short, but nobody expected them to be anywhere near the playoffs.
Should still be happy with that.
Yeah, so great effort, and hopefully they can build on that. Obviously, beneath that, you have like Detroit, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Penguins, all disappointing seasons. Montreal, I think a lot of people expected them to take a step. I'm not sure a lot of people expected them to make the playoffs.
I don't think a lot of people. No, I certainly did.
Jack said they would make the playoffs at the New Year's predictions.
Yeah.
But that's like halfway through the season.
Yeah. At the beginning of the season.
And they struggled at the start of the year as well. But around December, around Christmas time, they picked it up.
Yeah.
And they were able to make a run. They were one of the hottest teams in the second half of the season. And they got in 2 points.
They wanted it.
They wanted it. They're the 8th seed. And they will play Washington round 1.
Tough matchup round 1. But even just to get this accomplishment.
Yeah, good for them. That's a step. That's a step in the rebuild, right?
That's a confidence builder for all those young guys who've been kind of grinding it out a little bit. Having the faith in the team.
So good for them.
And it seems like they've got a decent backup in Dovish. Maltop doesn't have to carry every single game.
Exactly. Out west, we had 6 teams clinched. The Central and Pacific, the 3 spots in those 2 divisions were clinched. It was the 2 wildcard spots. Calgary made a run of it. They ended up tied with St. Louis on points, but St. Louis has the tiebreaker. Minnesota finished 1 point above those 2. So Calgary, it was a great effort. Again, another team nobody expected to be in the mix. Maybe a little more expectation than Columbus, but obviously Minnesota started hot had some injury troubles and kind of fell off. They're able to stay in the playoff spot, and then St. Louis, who is the hottest team since the Four Nations break, is able to hold on to that final playoff spot and get in. They will play the President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets, while Minnesota will go to Vegas. They'll swap over to the Pacific Division. So 5 teams from the Central get in, and 5 teams from the Atlantic get in. So that hasn't really happened much since the division changes. Since they went and they got rid of the 1v8, 1 to 8, and it's been division matchups. Usually it's been pretty much a split, 4 teams from each division. But this year it's 5 teams from the Atlantic and 5 teams from the Central, which is probably what a lot of people would have predicted. Maybe not the teams that got in, especially in the Atlantic, especially Montreal.
Yeah.
Even Ottawa, a lot of people probably wouldn't have picked.
No.
Oh, maybe half and half. But
I think a lot of people would have said they would have squeaked in
Yeah.
like the second wildcard place, if anything.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's just to wrap up the standings to finish out the season. It came down to the wire too in the West. Calgary was right there up until the end. I believe they needed Minnesota or St. Louis to not win on Tuesday night. Actually, Minnesota just needed a point, but they both ended up winning. Minnesota won in overtime. Calgary ended up winning in a shootout, so if one of those 2 teams slipped up, they would have been in there, but obviously it didn't happen. We almost had 6 Canadian teams in. Actually, Vancouver was the next team out, so they almost had 7.
Oh, cool.
Calgary, Vancouver were right there, so all 7 Canadian teams almost made it. But 5 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially in today's era of the salary cap with all the differences in taxes and stuff in Canada compared to most American teams. It's pretty impressive that we got 5 teams. All 3 Canadian teams in the East get in.
Yeah.
So, before we get to that, before we get to the playoff previews, I want to touch on a couple things. So we have my preseason predictions in front of us. Jack was a slacker and didn't write them down.
No.
So we'll go through, see what I did, and then we have the NHL player polls.
Okay.
We'll take a quick look at those. Now, my preseason predictions, we're going to compare them to what actually happened. Obviously, some of the playoff stuff hasn't happened yet, so we won't see that. And the trophy, the individual awards, we'll have to wait on some of them as well. But, okay, look at the Atlantic. I said Florida would get first. Obviously, Toronto ended up winning. I said Toronto would get second. So Florida, I said would get first. They ended up getting third. I said Toronto in second. They won the division. I said Tampa in third. They got second. I said Detroit in fourth. They ended up sixth in the division. A little disappointing there. I said Boston in fifth. And they obviously finished last in the division at the end. And I had Detroit and Boston in the playoffs. So not great there. Obviously the top 3, they kind of changed, but I was pretty close there. I said Ottawa in sixth. They ended up getting fourth. They got into the playoffs. Montreal in seventh. They ended up getting fifth, getting into the playoffs. And I said Buffalo in eighth. They got seventh, not too far off. So not great. I'd say about the three top teams I got pretty close. Buffalo I got pretty close, but everyone else I wasn't.
There is an element of there was some big surprises.
Yeah, Montreal was definitely a big one. Boston was a big one.
Boston.
Yeah. Into the Metro, I said Carolina would win the division. They finished second, so not too far off. I said the Rangers would get second. They did end up getting fifth in the division, but it wasn't enough to get into the playoffs. I said New Jersey in third. They got third. I had the Islanders in fourth, but missing the playoffs. They ended up sixth. They didn't make it, obviously. I had Pittsburgh in fifth. That was pretty generous of me. They finished seventh. Bad season. This is the one. Washington, I had sixth. They were the best team in the East, which I don't think many people expected them to be that good.
No.
After what we saw last year. Yeah.
If you called this,
yeah,
you're a
genius.
A
yeah.
genius.
I had Philly in seventh. They got last, so pretty close. And I had Columbus in last. I thought Columbus was going to be the worst team in the league. And they definitely overperformed. They finished fourth in the division and very, very came near to making the playoffs. That was in the East. If we go out west to the Central, I had Dallas winning division. They finished second. I had Colorado finishing second. They finished third, so not too far off there. Here's the one. Now, I said this, but Jack's is even worse. I had Nashville finishing third in division. They finished seventh.
Oh,
They were terrible. At least I didn't pick them to win the Stanley Cup, though.
like, what a miscalculation. What a disappointment.
I had
Nashville.
Winnipeg in fourth. Obviously, they ended up winning the division and the President's Trophy for best team in the NHL. I think a lot of people maybe didn't expect the Winnipeg to be in the playoffs this year, honestly.
For them to start the way they did,
And they started hot, and they hung on.
and even to continue the way
And they never really got really cold.
They didn't have a super long streak of any significance of bad games.
Exactly. There might have been a week or two here and there, but there wasn't much.
It wasn't like a month.
Yeah.
Which happened.
Yeah. I had Utah getting fifth in the division and getting into the playoffs. Obviously, that didn't happen, but they weren't too far off.
No,
They were in the mix for pretty much the majority of the season.
Yeah.
I had St. Louis in sixth. Obviously, they got fifth and snuck into the last spot. I was low on Minnesota, I guess. I had them in seventh. They ended up getting in. They had the fourth spot in the Central and the first wild card.
Probably would have done even better if they didn't have the slump.
With Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and all the injuries, right? I think most people could have predicted Chicago was going to get last in the division. Yeah, they did. In the Pacific, I said Edmonton would win the division. They finished third. There was some injury issues.
Yeah.
Obviously, the team is very different in the depth places from last year, so it didn't work out. Vegas, I had second. They won the division, of course. I had Vancouver in third. A little bit of a disappointment. They got fifth and missed. I had Seattle in fourth. I don't know what I was thinking there.
Really?
Yeah. I think I was low on LA. And I was kind of like, this division's not strong. And I wanted to make a point that LA is not going to get in. So I just said Seattle will finish above them. Seattle ended up finishing seventh. Not a good year for them. I had LA in fifth. They ended up getting second. I think a lot of people, kind of like Winnipeg, had them missing out or being in a wild card spot. But they surprised some people. Anaheim in sixth. They did. I got that right. Their points tally is obviously a lot better. 80 points. They were like near 50, 60 points the year previous. So, yeah. I had Calgary in seventh. I expected them to struggle. They did a lot better than what most people expected. They finished fourth in the division, just missed out on the final wild card. And then San Jose, same as Chicago, pretty much expected that they would get last. I said that Edmonton would win the President's Trophy. They didn't really come anywhere close to that. Winnipeg ends up getting it. The awards that we do know, the Art Ross went to Nikita Kucherov. I said McDavid. Not in McDavid's best offensive season.
He had some layoff time.
Yeah. And even when he was healthy, it wasn't his normal point production. The Rocket Richard, I said Matthews. Obviously, he missed some time, and it wasn't his best goal-scoring season. Draisaitl ends up taking it home.
Surprise, I think, on Draisaitl.
Yeah.
I don't think many would have predicted that.
Yeah. He would have been top 5 for sure. Yeah, but to win. Outside of that, I had Heiskanen winning the Norris. He had too many injuries. He wasn't really in the mix anyway, but that's not going to happen. I had Shesterkin winning the Vezina because of the Rangers' struggle. That's not going to happen. I think it's pretty much a lock that Hellebuck's going to get it. I said Sheldon Keefe would get the Jack Adams. That's not going to happen. The Hart, I said McDavid. That's not going to happen. The Selke, I said Matthews. I don't think it will happen, but I don't think he'll be that far off.
He's in the conversation.
I don't think he'll win, though. The Calder is my most likely. I said Lane Hudson. And it's looking like, now that Calgary missed the playoffs, it looks like Hudson. Montreal got in.
Contributing the way he did.
Big time. Lane's one of the best point production defensemen as a rookie ever. So, very good chance he wins it. A couple of things I said breakout surprise. I said Logan Cooley. He had a decent season, but I wouldn't say really breakout.
It was good. It wasn't
Yeah.
unbelievable. But I still think he made like good strides.
He made strides, yeah. Well, Utah did make strides for sure. Disappointing, I said Linus Olmark. That's kind of proven wrong because Ottawa has been successful kind of because they've had the goaltending. I wouldn't say he's been like
He's been a good part
outstanding, but he's been very solid when healthy.
Yeah.
He's been hurt a lot as well.
Yeah.
And then the comeback player, I said Timo Meyer, who was better than he was the previous season.
He started way better.
Yeah, but kind of once Hughes was out, New Jersey kind of.
He tapered off in the
Yeah.
second half pretty good.
So the predictions, not great, but it's really difficult from the preseason. I give you shit for the Winnipeg Jets, but you want to hear the team I had losing in the final from the East? I had the Rangers losing in the final. Not quite as bad as Nashville because they at least came close to the playoffs. But
Nashville.
I had Dallas winning the cup preseason.
All the guys are partying on 6th Street or whatever it is,
which could still happen, but I doubt. With all the injuries, Dallas could be struggling to get there.
Jason Robinson, that's a big.
Yeah. Okay. Go to the player polls. Let's run through that quick. See if there's any surprises. So here's the NHLPA player polls. Who is the best overall goalie? Top 5. You have Saros 5th, Bob 4th.
Saros is even in the conversation. Yeah. He came 5th.
He came 5th. So that just tells you there's more to it.
Okay.
Nashville's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't exactly good though. He wasn't.
I wouldn't say he was good, but I think people are harsh on him.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Bob gets 4th. Hellebuyck gets 3rd. Shesterkin 2nd. Vasilevsky is 1st.
Do you agree with that ranking?
Although
I guess if Saros is in it, means there's more to it.
Based on one season, obviously Hellebuyck would be 1st. But I think overall as a whole, Vasilevsky's whole career, and because he was a lot better this year than he was the previous year, I don't disagree with that.
The only one I would consider switching is the Shesterkin.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like Hellebuyck, but I think Vasilevsky and Shesterkin look smoother in the net, and I like my goalies like that. I like my goalies; they look calm in the net, and that's kind of what I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think as a whole, Shesterkin is. That's hard. It's hard to say. Hellebuyck's older as well, but as a whole, Shesterkin's upside is probably higher than Hellebuyck's. But what Hellebuyck has done throughout his career is super impressive. Yeah. So you have to give him props. It is interesting that he finished 3rd, considering he's probably going to win back-to-back Vezinas. But I don't think you can really argue Vasilevsky.
I don't think you can argue Vasilevsky. I just thought Hellebuyck would beat Shesterkin in a second at least.
Okay, who is the best overall forward? Kaprizov gets 5th. Crosby is 4th. Kucherov is 3rd. McKinnon gets 2nd, and McDavid got the majority of the vote. He finishes 1st. Not really many. Kaprizov, maybe in terms of overall, even Kucherov overall.
I don't view Kucherov as super.
Yeah, but he's just so good offensively that. Yeah. Best overall defenseman. Adam Fox is 5th. Roman Josi gets 4th. Victor Hedman is 3rd. The top 2 is no surprise. Quinn Hughes is 2nd, and Makar got 72% of the vote as the best overall defenseman. Really no surprise there. I don't think anyone can really argue that.
No, not the top 2.
Yeah, definitely not. And Hedman obviously was a lot better again this year.
Who is 5th?
Adam Fox.
Okay.
Who is the most complete player? This is they have the top 6. Top 6. So Anze Kopitar is in the 6th slot.
Love it.
Austin Matthews is 5th. McDavid gets 4th. McKinnon gets 3rd. And then 2 players that were neck and neck in the top 2 is Barkov gets 2nd. And still, at 37 years of age, Sidney Crosby is the most complete player, voted by the players. Still. We're not going to get into it. We've talked about it ad nauseum.
Yeah.
He's the man. Who's the best playmaker? Crosby's 5th in the playmaker. Panarin gets 4th, which is definitely, he should be up there. Draisaitl in 3rd. McDavid gets second, and Kucherov, with nearly 50% of the vote, is voted the best playmaker.
Do you think Marner should have been in consideration?
He probably would have been the next guy. I think there's just so much respect for Crosby.
Yeah.
At this point, I would probably put Marner above Crosby. Even Draisaitl seems high for playmaker.
Yeah.
I think, but even then, like Draisaitl does both, so I can't really argue it. Yeah, I feel like maybe Marner should have been in the 5th slot.
In consideration.
Yeah, in consideration. Even over Panarin at this point.
I
think peak Panarin, I'm not going to argue it, but like right here, right now. But this is player polls, and it's not necessarily just this season.
Yeah,
right?
and that's the big thing.
Yeah.
I think is this is representing.
We're talking Panarin's been doing it a long time here. So, if you need to win a face-off, who would you pick? This seems low for Barkov. Barkov in 5th. That seems low to me.
Okay.
George Staal's in 4th.
Shouts out Staal.
Yeah, well, face-offs. I would agree with that. Anze Kopitar in 3rd. Definitely don't disagree with that. Ryan O'Reilly in 2nd. And, of course, Sidney Crosby is 1st. All those guys are deserving to be in the top 5. Who is the smartest overall player? Interesting. In 5th, Adam Fox.
Really?
Interesting. Which I don't necessarily disagree with, because a lot of his game, you don't see much of like physical attributes in his game that really stand out. I think it's a lot of intelligence with Fox.
Okay.
Barkov is in 4th. McDavid is in 3rd. Kucherov is in 2nd. And of course, Sidney Crosby is voted the smartest overall player. Who's the best overall skater? You have Jesper Bratt in 5th. That's fair. Quinn Hughes gets 4th. Nathan McKinnon in 3rd. Cale Makar in 2nd, and then with the very big majority of the vote, McDavid gets 1st with 66%. Here you go. Which player has the best fashion sense?
Oh God.
The Leafs are pretty high on this list.
Yeah, you might have a couple.
In 5th, you have Rupe Hintz of Dallas Stars. Patrick Laine in 4th. You have William Nylander in 3rd.
Oh, I should be 1st.
Austin Matthews in 2nd. And David Pastrnak in 1st. Pasta gets 1st.
Okay, good job, Pasta.
Who would be a good broadcaster once they retire?
Okay.
You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. In 7th, you got Marcus Foligno. Eric Johnson is 6th. Eric Comrie, interesting one, in 5th. The backup goalie, you don't see that a lot. Pat Maroon in 4th. Brad Marchand in 3rd. You got Ryan Strome in 2nd, and the winner is Kevin Hayes.
Really?
Which is, I would agree with. He's got some personality.
Okay.
I'm not going to bother with that one. Yeah, but just because the entertainment factor.
Yeah.
Last one, which NHL arena has the best ice? You have T-Mobile Arena in Vegas is 5th. XL Energy Center in Minnesota is 4th. The Canada Life Center in Winnipeg is 3rd. I guess that tracks because it's freezing fucking cold. They probably don't need any systems to change anything. Rogers Place in Edmonton is 2nd, and the big majority, nearly 50%, is the Bell Center in Montreal is 1st.
Like there's a factor of like teams that don't have to switch out the ice very often.
That could be one as well. Because there's
Toronto, it's like you've got the Raptors there, you've got concerts there,
yeah,
a whole bunch of events.
Montreal, you don't switch. Edmonton, you don't switch. No. Winnipeg, you don't switch.
I think that might be
Vegas, you don't switch. Minnesota, I believe, does switch though.
Did it really?
The Timberwolves play there, I believe. I could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, that's probably not going to change year to year.
No.
That's going to be mostly, unless there's a new team that comes in like Vegas. But Seattle's obviously not there. Utah's not there, so I don't think that's going to change.
Houston team.
All right. Are we ready?
I'm ready. I'm itching for it.
This is the playoff preview. We're going to go series by series. We're going to give our prediction at the end of each season, each series. We're also going to, I'm going to give, you don't have to if you don't want to, but you can as well. We're going to give an X factor for each team.
Okay.
For a player. So we'll look at the series, we'll look at the storylines, we'll give an X factor, we'll give a prediction. We'll start in Toronto.
Okay.
This is the series that everyone has been waiting for in Canada for a while.
My childhood.
Yeah, early 2000s. Toronto versus Ottawa. Toronto did dominate, but it was always a close series. So the Battle of Ontario is back in the playoffs.
I'm giddy.
Ottawa actually swept the season series, so
Yeah.
that's an interesting note. Obviously, a lot of Leafs fans would have preferred to play Ottawa over Tampa and Florida.
But look at
But
regular
season results. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
No.
But looking at it, we can kind of get into the Leafs' injury problems here. Looking at the lineups, the forward lineup doesn't look too different than what it will be.
No.
Kampf will probably draw in at some point when healthy. At the moment, Domi's playing on the second line. Do you think they stick with that?
I think it's all. I think game one's going to dictate a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think game one's going to dictate.
I think maybe they do.
Is he if he rises to the occasion? Because who else do you plug in? Bobby
would be probably the choice. Yeah.
I think they're going to ride whoever has momentum.
Yeah. It's just interesting because obviously with Kampf out, Lawton has had to play fourth line center, and Holmberg has been playing third line center. So interesting there. McMahon, Holmberg, Robertson. There's quite a bit of speed on that line.
Yeah.
And the third line. Domi could be a playmaker with Tavares and Nylander. We'll see how that lasts.
I hate that actually.
Knies, Matthews, Marner isn't going to get broken up too often. The fourth line I actually do like. Lorentz, Lawton, and Yarncroke. It's a strong fourth line.
Yeah.
So it's on the back end where the issues are going to be. They are saying McCabe will play.
Okay, so if he's playing, that's going to get a lot better.
So McCabe, Tanev, Riley, Carlo will be the second pairing. Now, if OEL doesn't play, he's questionable for game one. Do we maybe separate the big pairings a little bit just to even it out? Because do you really trust a Benoit Myers pairing? I know it's the third pairing, but
I don't hate it because I've actually really liked Benoit's play over the last half of the season. I could see them breaking up Tanev McCabe though.
Since with the McCabe stuff, it was kind of like they tried to even out the pairings, where it was like a Benoit, a Myers, and a Mermis would play with one would play with Tanev, one would play with Carlo, one would play with Riley. That's kind of what it was. Obviously, with McCabe being in it, you don't have to do it as much. I think you bite the bullet because it doesn't sound like OEL is going to be out long term if he does miss. If he's close to playing game one, I would imagine he's going to play. If he doesn't play, it'll play game 2 or game 3.
Yeah. So you're saying just keep everything as is?
I think if you want to get the best out of Riley, you have to keep him with Carlo. And I think you have to, if you want to shut it down, you have Stützle and Tkachuk on the same line for Ottawa. I think McCabe and Tanev has to be the matchup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with the Tkachuk physicality factor.
Because McCabe actually, I think, really...
McCabe's our most physical defenseman.
He goes nicely against Tkachuk.
He's our most physical defenseman.
He can actually stand up to him.
Yeah.
He can actually pin him in the corner.
Yeah.
He has the size to him. I want that line facing them.
Even Kampf, when Kampf is healthy, I don't think it's a shoo-in that he slots back in right away. If the way, because these lines they've won all their games this week, they've worked this week. Obviously, it's the playoffs, so it's a different beast.
The finish of the year has been really solid.
Yeah. You mentioned Pacioretty. I don't think he draws in unless people really struggle.
It feels like it lasts
when healthy too. I don't think he's fully there yet.
Yeah, I think that's a worst case scenario entering.
And Reeves as well.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah. I think it's just injuries. He'll come in.
Yeah.
In the net, we kind of talked about, I think it's pretty obvious that Stolarz is going to be the starter to start.
I think so. I think he's earned it. I think he's just hot. I think he's more hot right now.
Yes. Than Wall. And Wall actually has played well the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's not a knock on Wall.
Yeah.
It's a kudos.
It's so unfortunate for this guy because it's another year where he tries to win the job and then kind of injuries kind of hinder him a little bit. And if you look at that series against Boston last year, if Wall would have started, did we win that series from the beginning, right? Obviously, he ended up getting hurt at the end of Game 6, didn't play Game 7, we lose Game 7. But based on what he did in the games that he played, if Wall would have started earlier, maybe we would have had that series closed out before Game 7.
There's a real argument to it.
But based on right now, Stolarz has been the better goalie of late, so you're going to ride the hot hand.
you lose game 1? Do you switch?
It's completely dependent on what happens.
Yeah.
If they lose the game 2-1, and it's not Stolarz' fault, I'm not going to say switch. But if Stolarz is a disaster, then yeah, maybe not game 1. But if he is a disaster game 1 and doesn't play great game 2, then maybe you're going to wall.
Yeah.
If you're down 2-0, right? Stuff like that. That's the lineup stuff. Obviously, it hasn't worked out terrific for the Leafs against Ottawa this year.
I don't read into that a whole lot.
I try not to.
I think it is a
Ottawa is a physical team.
Yeah, you start to look at play style when it comes to that. 'Cause it's like, okay, well, the Leafs on paper have performed better. They finished better. They seem to be a better team. But then it comes into matchup and play style. And does Ottawa just match up nicely in terms of how they play against the Leafs?
The big thing for the Leafs here is that this is Ottawa's first playoff appearance in a long time. A lot of guys that haven't played in the playoffs before, but they do have some that have. You have Claude Giroux.
Mr. Giroux.
You have David Perron, who's played has a ton of playoff experience, a cup winner. Ullmark has a little bit of playoff experience. I believe he was there with St. Louis when they won, and then maybe Vegas as well.
Perron was in Vegas?
He was at. I'm not sure if he was there when they won, though.
I never realized he played in Vegas.
David Perron.
Interesting.
But even if he hasn't won, he has a ton of experience.
Even experience is
no, he was in Vegas before St. Louis, so he won with St. Louis. That's it. But played a lot of playoff games with St. Louis.
Knows what it takes to get the job done.
Yeah. So, yeah. So they do have some guys in the lineup, but I wouldn't necessarily say those are like they're in the top 6, but they're more complementary pieces. They're not the main guys on the team.
Perron's not scoring a whole lot.
Now, Cousins could be a key addition. Doesn't have a ton of experience, but a healthy second-line center for Ottawa. That third line, that's a good third line as well. Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, Nicholas Amadio.
Yeah.
Amadio won a cup with Vegas. Depth role, but a little bit of experience there. And then the big thing for Ottawa will be goaltending.
How's Ullmark going to do?
Ullmark has a little bit of playoff experience. He hasn't been terrific. If we look back on it, he played one game in the playoffs last year, and that was the one game we won with Samsonov in net.
And then they switched.
And then they went back to Swayman. Well, Swayman played game 1, Ullmark played game 2, and then they would kind of rode Swayman as the hot hand.
Yeah.
And then obviously the previous season when he won the Vezina, and he was the best goalie, Boston was the best team. They went up 3-1, but then they blew it, and it was kind of like Swayman came in. Ullmark wasn't playing terrific.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a little bit of experience in the playoffs, but not great experience. Now, Stolarz is pretty much, I know he's a Stanley Cup winner, but he didn't play.
Do you think goalies feel playoff nerves more than players are?
Probably dependent on the guy, but as a goalie, it's kind of like, as a player, if you make a mistake, you can still kind of make up for it. As a goalie, somebody else can make up for it. If you're the winger and you make a mistake on the other team's goal line, you have 4 other players that can make up for it. If you're a goalie making the mistake, nobody's here to back you up.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just more, and like a goalie's mistake results in a goal.
Yeah.
Whereas a player's mistake might not.
Yeah.
For the most part, it probably won't.
And there's more options for you, even if you're having a bad game. There's more options for players to go.
Exactly.
Goalies,
you have one job.
Yeah.
It's keep the puck out of the net. That's it. Right? So we'll see what happens. But Ullmark coming in is a major factor in why Ottawa did make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They needed to stop leaking goals, essentially. I look at their decor. It is very good. I don't think it's outstanding. And it's not big.
Sanderson.
So it could be a thing where Toronto's used to playing big teams like Boston and Florida in the playoffs that are hard to get on the inside. So maybe that's something the Leafs can do more than they have previous. Because if you recall, the Leafs' struggles in the playoffs have not been defensively. It's been scoring goals come playoff time.
Yeah.
Maybe goaltending a little bit, but...
A little bit, yeah.
Depending on... But not like as a whole, right? It's more like one game here, one game
Suddenly
there.
we forget how to score.
Yeah, but the goal scoring is what has struggled. Now, if we look at this season, we've played a more playoff style game through the whole year, whereas before it's kind of like we play high flying attack, and then come playoff time, we play that playoff style. We can do it, but we don't play it all year, so we're not used to it.
And I do think, like, I'm a big recency bias guy.
Yeah.
Like, I do think recency matters. And you have gotten more depth scoring in the last couple of weeks than we've had throughout the season. Like, at one point we were talking about how literally it's not Marner Matthews,
Yeah.
Nyes to a degree, or John scoring. We weren't scoring that game. You've had a lot of guys step up, which I think should hopefully address some of these holes.
But again, playoffs is a different beast.
Yeah.
We don't know. Obviously Sanderson has been great this year for Ottawa,
Yeah.
but young guy, Shabbat is finally having to eat less minutes than what he has in the past, which is good for him and good for his game. But again, these aren't like big bruiser D-men, so the Leafs can get on the inside, and we have Nyes. You have Tavares can get on the inside. McMahon, you see that guy getting on the inside, maybe not like more so with speed, like driving the net. You see McMahon this past week, he was flying around.
Yeah. Looking like really good McMahon style.
So it could be something the Leafs can exploit. I know a lot of people will pick Ottawa as well because they're a very good team.
You wouldn't be a lunatic to do so.
No, you wouldn't. Brady Tkachuk, I know he doesn't have any playoff experience, but that's a player that's made for the playoffs.
I don't view him struggling at all.
Stützle, we'll see.
More of an argument for
Stützle, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a player that like shies away from contact, but he doesn't like go out and dish it.
No,
like I would say Stützle's probably more able to take contact than like an Elias Pettersson.
Yeah. I think he's going to walk it off more.
I think it's a similar type player.
Yeah.
Like in terms of play style, but I don't think it's a player that he can handle it. He's not going to like it, but he can handle it. Like a Nylander.
Yeah.
Not a player that loves physicality, but he can handle it.
Yeah. He knows it's involved in the game. He knows it's a necessary component.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Part of the job.
Anything else on that series? The storylines are goaltending on both ends.
Yeah.
The Leafs, it's kind of like the Leafs finally have, whether it's Stolarz or Wall, they finally have someone in the net. Both guys don't have a ton of playoff experience, but you're a little more comfortable than what you have been in a long time.
I think the guys can feel more confident.
Whereas, and Ottawa has a goalie, finally.
Sammy?
Yeah. Every shot is like a panic.
Yeah.
So, and Ottawa as well.
Panic collapsing. You play more structured because you have confidence in the goalie. And the goalie's confidence in you. I like Stolarz vocally. He acts more like a soccer goalie. He's dictating play from the net, which you don't see. I've not seen.
Yeah. You don't see a ton of in hockey. No, you don't see a ton of it in hockey.
He's so involved in the play that I think that helps the guys a lot.
Yeah. Other storylines we touched on. Can the Leafs put the puck in the net in the playoffs? Can they get on the inside? In Ottawa, it's more of a lack of playoff experience. Will they be able to? Maybe they'll come in and say we have no pressure because they don't really have any pressure.
Yeah.
It's their first time they made the playoffs. They've done what they were wanted to do is make the playoffs. So it could be they have no fear, but it could also be this is the playoffs.
Guys, we made it here.
We made it. They get a little nervous, right? Maybe holding your sticks a little too tight. We'll see. Battle of Ontario. We love to see it. Do you want to pick an X factor?
I think the X factor is it for each team? Or
each team.
I think X factor for the Leafs. I think it's. There's a couple I want to pick.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
For Ottawa, I'm going to say Ullmark.
Yeah.
Because it's an inexperienced team in the playoffs, so you need your goaltending. And Ullmark is the reason they've made this jump, right? Goaltending and defensive play to a degree, but the defensive unit hasn't changed that much.
So I was gonna pick Olmark for Ottawa. too.
Olmark's the one for Ottawa. If not him, it would be Kachuk, but I would say Olmark.
Olmark's the guy who's on the ice every single time.
Yeah.
The whole game. He's the guy who's on the ice the
Yeah.
whole time and is going to be the one who can potentially get hot and shut down the Leafs. Kachuk is gonna, I think, just play standard. I don't think
His game doesn't need to adapt because that's how he plays all the time.
it's not going to be a
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah.
Does he have another year that we haven't even seen? Who knows?
We'll see.
But I would agree. Allmark's going to be the X factor for Ottawa.
In Toronto, there's a lot of different options I thought about. I'm not going to say goaltending because I think it's steady now.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an X factor. I think it's just solid enough, and our defensive play is a lot better. I would maybe consider a McCabe Tanev pairing as a possible one, but I'm not going to pick that because we have proven that we can shut it down defensively come playoff time.
I'm thinking of the big three.
It's the big guns. And I'm not going to say Nylander because Nylander has shown out of the three that he can do it.
I'm thinking it's more so Marner or Tavares.
I say Matthews.
Yeah.
I think it's time for Matthews to put his stamp on this organization in the playoffs. This is Austin Matthews' team. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
He has the C now. He has been the best player in the team for a long time. And he's shown glimpses, but it's time to be the best player on the ice, night in, night out, in the playoffs. It's that time. He's the one that's going to do it. Yes, Marner needs to be better, but Matthews has to be the one.
The reason I even brought Marner and Tavares in is to go with
the contract situation. They're gone. They could be gone.
They could both be gone. Mm-hmm. So it's a big prove it point. This is the everyone was holding out. Yep. Marner, what can you do with the playoff? Fine, you're going to hold out. You didn't resign yet. You've had a great season. That's not unusual.
Another thing with Matthews, I'll say, is that if you want Marner to stay, he's probably not going to stay if you lose in the first round again.
Especially if you're asking, hey, let's keep this going.
Yeah.
I know you want X number. Consider why, because look what we've got going for us.
Exactly.
The reason I'm considering those two guys also is if you're going to have Matthews scoring more, how much pressure can Marner draw off?
Yeah.
In the regular season, he's shown that he can do that.
Yeah. Even when Matthews was out.
Yeah. His goal scoring has been great this year.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Great. Fantastic. Because it's always been, you don't need to worry about him scoring goals. He's not looking to score goals. He's looking to play make. He's now become more well-rounded where has he become and is he confident in his game enough to stick with what he's done in the regular season to take some pressure off Matthews, to draw more guys towards himself, to finish goals if he's got the opportunity and he can take those shots. I think that matters a lot, and that dynamic is what could potentially solve some of the goal scoring issues we've had in the playoffs. So I think that's one component. The second component, where I would argue Tavares could be within the X factor, is look at some of these games that they've been winning the latter half of the year. Tavares has been a huge part of that. March, he was the highest goal scorer in the league.
Mm-hmm.
If he can keep that going, then again, it offers different firing power and different looks that it's not just got to come from the top line.
Yep.
I think I would agree. Nylander's going to show up. That he's shown that he does. Tavares has not shown up historically in the playoffs for us. Not to the degree that we need him, at least.
Yeah. He's shown glimpses, but never.
And he's going to be taking a lot of those big faceoffs.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to matter in terms of leading some of that.
And he's still one of the vets in the room.
Yeah. To lead some of that middle scoring.
Even if he doesn't have the C.
Yeah. So I think that's arguable. And then Matthews, this is your team, man.
Yeah.
This is you've got you've got more than just the city. You've got most of the province. You're the guy.
Yeah.
So I think
for the whole league, even if you're not a Leafs fan, everyone expects this guy.
Yeah.
McDavid has been close. McKinnon's done it. McCarr's done it.
Yeah.
Plenty of guys have done it. It's time for you to do it.
Yeah. So I think any of those three are relevant in terms of
you gotta pick one
single X factor. I'm gonna go with Marner.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Marner. This is
I don't disagree necessarily. It's like he needs to. It's especially if it's a contract year. It's put up or shut up.
there's not a necessarily wrong answer in terms of the X factor for
Yep.
these because there's a lot of guys who could be it.
Okay, what do you think?
I think Toronto takes it. I think it's gonna be gritty. I think it's not gonna be a sweep. I think it's probably gonna be like 6 games ish, maybe 7, but I think most likely 6. Um, Sens are gonna start hot, but and it's gonna be a battle. It would surprise me if you don't see some overtime. I think it's gonna be low scoring too. I don't think it's gonna be massive amount of scoring. I think both teams are gonna be decently capable defensively. I think it's gonna be who can cause the other guys to bring Blake first.
I'm gonna say Leafs in 6 as well. I think Ottawa is just not quite there. They're not quite ready yet.
Yeah.
I think they could be next year. I just don't think they're quite there yet. And Toronto, I think they can exploit this matchup a little better than what they have in the teams they've played in the past, and with the style of play that they now play as well.
And even the adaptability.
Yeah.
Even if they lose a game, if there's an obvious exploit that's Ottawa's taking advantage of, I do think they can kind of smooth that over relatively quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, Leafs in 6, baby.
Leafs in 6. We both say Leafs in 6. We got a consensus. Okay, we're gonna stay in the Atlantic. We're gonna go to the Battle of Florida.
Okay. You want to toss a coin? Like, how
How do you pick this series? This is extremely difficult. Tampa comes in pretty hot. They've been one of the better teams in the league in the second half. Those first 2 lines, you look at those first 2 lines. Yanni Gourde has come in at the deadline. Player with know-how come playoff time with Point and Kucherov. That's a strong line. You look at the second line. Hagel, Cirelli, Gensel. 3 guys, you watch them play at the Four Nations, the big games. They all showed up in big games. They all can, a little bit of secondary scoring. They can put the puck in a decent amount. And they play 100 feet. They play that style that you need come playoff time.
Yeah.
They'll be good on draws. They'll be good defensively. Energy, forecheck.
They can match the physicality.
Yeah.
Too.
That third line looks a lot better than it has. That Gonsalves guy has looked really good for Tampa this year. Hedman has been terrific in the second half. You've brought McDonough back in. That's a big-time playoff guy. And Vasilevsky's back to his old self. Tampa is scary.
Gensel's back.
Gensel's playing, yeah.
Because he wasn't an injury.
Yeah. If you go to Florida, we're talking about the defending Cup champs and the 2-time defending Eastern Conference champs. The Eastern Conference has run through these 2 teams the past half decade.
Mm-hmm.
So since the 2020s have started, the Eastern Conference Stanley Cup final representative has always been from the state of Florida.
That's crazy to think.
Looking at it, Florida's had a lot of injury issues as of late. They're coming in more hobbled. Barkov is just kind of getting back. Tkachuk, it sounds like he will play at some point. Not sure when. Marchand's a new addition. Ekblad's going to miss the first 2 games in Tampa. So he'll come back in, and he hasn't been hurt, but he also hasn't played in 20 games.
That's relevant.
You do still have Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think goaltending will be an issue for either team.
No.
It kind of cancels itself out. Oh, it's so hard. If I'm looking at it, if Florida is fully healthy, I'm looking at their depth and it's fucked.
Lindell.
Their lines if healthy right now, what they have here is the normal first line: Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart. Extremely strong line.
Mm-hmm.
Both ends of the ice. The second line is Samoskevich, who's had a terrific year as a young player, with Bennett and Tkachuk. That's a mean motherfucking line.
And Samoskevich, whatever his name is, coming in hot.
Yeah. The third line, really good. You add Marchand onto this third line with Lundell and Luosterainen. That's a terrific third line. That's a bitch of a third line to play against. And even the fourth line, Evan Rodriguez on the fourth line, he plays first line sometimes with Sturm and Boqvist. That's strong depth, even on the back end. When Ekblad's back in the mix, you have Ekblad, you have Forsling, you have Seth Jones, you have Kulikov, you have Mikkola. Both these teams have insane depth.
Yeah.
So what do you value more? Tampa's been better this season. Florida has been better in the playoffs the past few seasons. Tampa is more of a, not that they can't, both teams can do everything, but Florida's more of a dump and chase physical team. Tampa is more of a scoring and keep possession. Yeah, out of the two teams. So it's kind of what I think the biggest factor is Florida healthy? And the guys that are coming in, can they just come back right away
Hit the ground running.
from long absences? That's the biggest factor in this series. Can they do that?
This is going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to watch the series.
Yeah.
In my eyes, they're going to trade games.
Yeah. It's
going to, and I'll kind of open it up. I think it's going to be a who blinks first. I think it's literally as simple as that. And my pick for this one, I've gone back a lot.
I've gone back and forth a lot.
I'm going Tampa. Reason being,
we're gonna wait for the picks a little bit.
Okay.
We're just chatting here first.
I think Tampa has a bit of an edge because, again, recency.
Yep.
They're coming in really, really.
Yep.
They're coming in hot.
Yeah.
They've got their own depth that is
terrific. Yeah.
I think that if you have Kachuk, you would have loved a couple warm-up games. Ekblad missing 2 games. Marchand, fine.
He's been better.
He's been
better.
Fine.
He's been better, and you know that guy turns it on in the playoffs.
Yeah. He's gonna get into some nonsense. I think that the offense is just going to be a little bit too much, and to me, this comes down to you've got 2 monsters in that. I just think that Tampa, coming in the way they are, is going to be able to edge it out because you've got a critical D-man missing. You've got some guys coming in a little bit cold, even if it's one game. I think this is going to be a series that goes to 7. I think it's going to be a series where one game is all it may take. It's not going to be like, a down 3-0 and then a big comeback. I think it's going to be 2-2, 1-1-1. And so I think that given that you're missing Ekblad and you're going to have I'm going to give it an adjustment game for those guys who are coming back, even if they're all there in game 1. I think game 1, if Tampa wins it, I think they win the series.
Okay. Yeah, obviously the big storyline we mentioned is the injury stuff. Outside of that, Tampa knows this because they experienced this. They haven't the past couple of years. But another big thing is, does Florida have a little bit of burnout here? They've played a lot of hockey the past 2 years. They've gone into June the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Another full season with a lot of injury problems. This is what Tampa did. Tampa made the finals 3 years in a row, and that's kind of what happened. They've gone first-round exits back-to-back seasons now.
Yeah.
And this team, they've readjusted a little bit. They let their captain go. Steven Stamkos is gone. They brought Gensel in. They brought McDonough back. They've let Sergachev go. It's still a lot of the same pieces, but it's mixed around. They brought in guys like we mentioned, Bjorkstrand at the deadline. Who else did they bring in at the deadline? There was someone else. Gord. Yanni Gord they brought in. Guys with playoff know-how, right? So it'll be interesting. I had a very difficult time picking this series.
Yesterday I was going Florida. Today I'm going Tampa.
You got to stick with it now. Here's what I'll say. Tampa's been very hot second half.
Mm-hmm.
Now Florida has had a ton of injuries, and they haven't played terrific, but they also haven't completely died.
They've fallen off the face here.
They're only 4 points back at Tampa with all those injuries. So I don't think a lot of people out there are picking Tampa. Like a lot of the experts are picking Tampa. They're saying Tampa's back. And I don't necessarily disagree. I think it's a very real possibility that Tampa wins this series and could even go all the way to the final.
Yeah.
I think it's a very real possibility. But I think Florida's being written off a little too early. Want to do X factors?
Sure.
Tampa. Who do you have? You want me to go first?
My X factor for Tampa, it's gonna be Hedman.
I agree.
I think that the veteran leadership comes into play most in the playoffs. I think that his defensive capability is gonna be big. I think that it's gonna matter a lot. And honestly, goal scoring, playmaking, setting guys up. He's the guy who can run a power play. I think you're gonna see pretty.
Special teams will always be a big factor in the playoffs.
And I think you're gonna see a lot of special teams this year, particularly in the series.
Yeah.
So I think the way that he can run, because he's on PP1.
Yes.
I think that he's very, very smart in terms of to watch him move the puck on PP1. Watch how he reads the play. I just think that is going, if he can really run that power play well, I think that's how you're going to get goal scoring. That's going to be the edge. So I'm going to go Victor Hedman.
I agree. I have Hedman written down here as well. I say Hedman because if you look at the past 2 years, he hasn't been at his best, whether that's injury problems, a little bit of burnout from playing so much. But he has taken a big step back into what he was previously, which was the best defenseman in the NHL for a good stretch of time. He's not quite that level anymore, but he's not far off. And I think that's a big reason why Tampa has had a couple early exits. You have Hedman back to his best. Obviously, Vasilevsky is a big factor as well. He's back to his best.
Yeah.
But I think the goaltending kind of cancels each other out.
I think there is an argument for both goaltenders being an X factor because it's like, it's which one?
Who's going to blink first? Yeah. But I think both are just very solid. I think there's going to be a lot of bad goals in the series. No. It's going to be hard to come by.
Yes.
Hedman, of course, and it's two-way play. And he is the only D-man I can say on this team. They have a very solid D-core, don't get me wrong, but he's the only guy that's that upper, can bring them up. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think Florida might have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So and they have a ton of guys up front who can score. So if Kucherov isn't scoring one night, Point is. If Point's not, Gensel is. If he's not, so you got Cirelli. You got other players, Hagel. You got other guys, right? Whereas the D-man, I think it's Hedman. Hedman's the leader, and he's the leader of the team as well. Now, especially since Stamkos is gone. But even before, Stamkos missed a lot of time in those playoffs. Hedman was the main guy. Yeah. So I agree with Hedman. In Florida, what do you got? I got mine if you want me to go first.
You can go first.
Sam Bennett.
Gamer choice. Okay.
We've seen in the playoffs the past 2 years. We've saw it in the Four Nations. This guy might not put up big points in the regular season, but when it comes time for big games, he's going to do the dirty shit that nobody else wants to do. He's going to get in the mix. He'll add a little bit of offense. He'll win draws. He'll be good defensively. Sam Bennett is a mean son of a bitch. And you know you have the big guns in this series. You have Point and Kucherov on one side. You have Barkov and Tkachuk and Reinhart on the other. But Bennett is that next tier guy who makes that little bit of a difference. You saw in the Four Nations, even with limited ice time, he still made major impacts. And he's going to get a lot more ice time here than he did for that tournament.
Yeah.
You have Tkachuk on his wing, and maybe this is a guy, listen, if there's anybody who can come in off a long layoff and come in and be a mean son of a bitch and be able to handle that physicality come playoff time, Matthew Tkachuk is near the top of that list who can be able to handle it. But you're still a guy with a long layoff. Bennett, even Tkachuk in the last season, The previous season, the year they lost in the final, he was unreal the whole playoffs. But this last season, it took him a bit to get going. On the score sheet.
Yeah.
On the score sheet. Obviously, other factors, no. But on the score sheet, it took him a little bit to get going.
Mhm.
Florida's able to pick up the slack. Bennett will be able to pick up that slack if Tkachuk isn't quite there offensively.
So I'm going to make mine off of the presumption that Kachuk is there in his regular self rather quickly.
Yeah, which is very possible.
Very possible. I don't know if there's an odor in the air, but I smell cheese. I think we got a rat that might be a difference maker. He's got success in Boston. He's a playoff guy. He was brought in. Florida, you know, is the Florida, you know. I think you've got two top lines that can match each other. That is going to be a battle. Okay, both those. If you want to argue that those have a slight edge or are relatively equal, that's fine. Okay, let's go into depth then. I think Marchand is going to be really talented. Tampa gets gritty. Tampa gets down in the playoffs. We spoke about special teams. I think you want to talk a guy who can draw some penalties.
Yeah.
Guy who might be able to squeak a couple in. You're right. He's been better recently.
Yeah.
A guy who can do some playmaking stuff. I think drawing in the special teams that Brad Marchand might be able to do may be a difference maker for Florida. I think that he offers a little bit extra that they maybe can draw on. That could be a difference maker for them.
Yeah. You could throw any of the pests out there. It's
Any
not,
of the pests.
yeah.
And they're already a pesky team.
Yeah.
But having it in the depth role that he's in the third line, he's still going to be getting some minutes.
Yep.
I think that's where you may be able to develop a little bit of an edge. I'm going to go Brad Marchand for my X factor for Florida.
All right. So what do you got? You've already said Tampa's going to win.
I'm going Tampa in 7.
Tampa in
I think
7.
it's going to be 7, and I think it's going to be the difference of that first game. If they win that first game, I'm going Tampa. I think they will. Tampa Bay in 7.
Okay. Everyone is sleeping on Florida.
Oh my gosh.
We're talking about the defending Cup champions here.
Okay.
We're talking about the team that plays playoff style hockey, 82 games a year.
They know what's up.
They know what's up, and they're going to be able to handle all the layoffs. And even the majority of the guys have been back at least a week and a half, 2 weeks now. Outside of Tkachuk and Ekblad, most of the guys have been back and have had time to get back in, and then now you can up the intensity here.
Damn topical.
Yeah. I'm going Florida in 7.
Okay. What's scoring look like? High scoring, low scoring, mid scoring? I'm going mid scoring. I'm going like 5 goals.
Tons of offense, but it's the goalies.
Yeah.
It's the goalies. Bob always seems to up his game in the playoffs, and Vasilevsky has probably been the best goalie of his generation. So it's hard to argue low score against low scoring.
Okay.
But there's going to be some games.
Yeah.
If it's going 7 games, it's not going to be low scoring every game.
Just curious.
Yeah. Okay. We'll stick to the East. The last Eastern Canadian team we got is the Montreal Canadiens. They play the Eastern Conference champion Washington Capitals.
For 1 minute, go off on Lane Hudson so I can use a washroom. I'm listening.
I want to talk about Washington first.
Okay.
So Washington has been interesting. Most people didn't expect Washington to come out and be anywhere near this good this season. And they came out flying. Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Most people expected it to be about Ovechkin's chase for the goal record. And it somewhat was. But in the middle of it, Washington was winning a lot of hockey games and doing it the right way, as opposed to last year. They got goaltending. They brought new players in that bedded in right away. So Washington though the Ovi stuff was a big factor in their season, it kind of took the pressure off them a little bit. And maybe that's why they did so well. Everyone was kind of focusing on Ovi's chase, and Washington could just play hockey without any pressure.
Okay.
Most people were kind of thinking, oh, it's just about get Ovi the puck, get him to score goals. But then you had Ovi out for 5 weeks when he broke his leg. Washington didn't skip a beat. Now, near the end here, as he's gotten closer, they have struggled a little bit, Washington. Thompson's been out for a little bit. I don't really hear any updates about that because he hasn't been playing. Is Lindgren the game 1 starter in Washington? We'll see. I think Washington is an extremely well-coached hockey team. I think that's a big factor as to why they've been so good this year. One thing against them is that they're not coming in hot. They've cooled down a bit. So let's see here. I want to see... Listen, Ovi is still one of the premier goal scorers in NHL, but his overall game isn't what it once was. He doesn't do much else. He was very quiet in the playoffs last year. They got swept round 1. Obviously, the team wasn't anywhere near as good. So can Washington, who hasn't had much to play for in the second half of the season, can they kind of pick it back up?
Mhm.
I believe that's a big reason why in hockey you see a lot of high seeds lose early, because those low seeds have something to play for, and Montreal has had something to play for up right until the end of the season. So that is a factor. That is Montreal's biggest strength here, is that they've been playing playoff type hockey up until the end of the season because they've had to try to get in. That is their big strength. Now, if you look at just head to head, Washington is going to win most metrics here.
Yeah.
Washington is the stronger team. Now we go into Montreal. You talked about Lane Hutson, big factor as to why they've taken a big jump. But just as a whole, they're playing a more well-rounded game.
Yeah.
They've been hot in the second half. Montembeault has been solid.
At least solid enough.
The storylines in Montreal, there's not really a lot of pressure. They have probably one of the best fan bases.
Yeah.
You're going into Montreal, it's going to be hard to play against. We saw that at the Four Nations, the atmosphere.
You're not going to see a Washington jersey in that arena.
Exactly. So I'm looking at it. This Demidov kid has taken off since he's been in Montreal.
Unbelievable.
He's looked great. You have guys like Brendan Gallagher back in the playoffs. Slavkovsky's looked a lot better. Suzuki's taken a step. Caulfield's taken a step. I'm looking at Montreal's roster, especially in the higher end parts of the lineup, and I will question, can these guys handle the playoff type game? Because they're not a big team.
First time doing it, too.
Yeah, they're not. Laine is a big guy, but Laine doesn't really get in the mix. Outside of that, Caulfield's a small guy. Suzuki's a small guy. Newhook's a small guy. Demidov's not a big guy. The depth guys, you have some bigger guys, but those guys aren't going to produce on the scoreboard as much as these other guys, right? On the back end, they've gotten a lot better. Hutson obviously has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I do think there's a little bit of an element of Washington's coming in. Expectations are high on you.
Yeah.
You just destroyed the year.
Yeah. You haven't had much to play for a long time outside of the OV goal chase.
Outside the OV goal chase, and you did really well. You surpassed, and now everyone's basically saying you should go run over Montreal.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep.
If you face,
That's the one thing Montreal's got.
if you face some adversity from Montreal goes out, steals game 1.
Yeah.
This could collapse real fast.
The only time these two have played each other in the playoffs ever, Washington, Montreal, 2010, I believe it was, and Montreal wins the series as the 8th seed with Jaro Halak in goal.
I I think there is a lot of pressure, and looking at some of these front end guys, like I think the depth on Washington is it's
On paper, Washington has us in the bag.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Now, not a whole lot to play for.
Also, Logan Thompson.
Cooled off a little bit.
But he's hurt.
Is he hurt?
He's been hurt. So I don't know. Like, on this depth chart here, he's not in right now.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
So I'm not sure if they were just holding him out to wait for the playoffs.
Because he's been doing a lot.
It says here on Daily Faceoff that he's the number one guy, so
Okay.
he could be ready.
Okay.
It looks like Protas is dealing with an injury as well, so he might not be ready right away. That's a big body for the playoffs.
I think because I think it makes more sense to talk where your nervousness around Washington. My nervousness with Washington is you went and you got PLD.
Mhm.
Is he going to be a gamer in the playoffs? You have some young talented guys. You have
Some
Ovi.
veteran guys too.
Is Ovi going to adapt to playoff hockey at his age?
Yeah.
Is he still motivated? Like I don't doubt he's still motivated, but he's not chasing a cup. He's got his cup now.
Yeah.
That monkey's off the back.
Yeah.
The kind of it's just, are you ready to elevate your game? Do you have playoff ready guys?
Yeah.
Can Chychrun do what Chychrun did during the regular season?
Yeah.
Can Strome be Strome in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Montreal, you're playing on house.
It's honestly the same factor as Ottawa, but actually even more.
Yeah.
Because Ottawa has kind of been expected to kind of make the playoffs the past couple of years. Like, they got to take the next step. People were saying Montreal needs to take a step, but I don't think many people expected them to make the playoffs here.
I think physicality is going to play a factor. Neither team's super physical.
Washington more so than Montreal, but yeah.
Got Big John Carlson on the back.
And Tom Wilson.
I think it is Washington should win this. Are you ready to kind of step up?
Yeah.
And are you coming into this casual or not? Are you taking Montreal? Are you giving Montreal the respect that they deserve?
Yep. So X factors.
Okay, so my X factor for Washington, it's McMichael.
Okay.
It's a young guy who had a breakout year, particularly early on, who has cooled down a little bit, who can kind of a high talent guy, like he's sick. Can you come up and be like, okay, I've been cold the latter half of the year. Can I step it up to where? Because I don't think Ovi should be playing crazy minutes.
Well, he's still in the first line.
He's still in the first line.
And him and Strome seem to have kind of that chemistry he had with Backstrom a little bit. So
yeah. I'm gonna go with McMichael just because I think a lot of people are discounting him a little bit now that he's off, and make sure that if he can find his performance again, if he can go, that may be some scoring that wasn't that people aren't expecting from a guy who can continue to make strides this season. So I'm gonna go with him for my X factor for Washington.
My X factor for Washington is somebody you previously mentioned, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, if you look back on Pierre-Luc Dubois' time, if you go way back to Columbus here, the year that the COVID stuff happened, the Leafs played Columbus in the play-in round, whatever you want to call it, and Columbus won the series. Dubois was the best player on the ice every single night.
Yeah.
He looks a lot happier in Washington than he did previously in Winnipeg and again in LA. Especially LA. He has found a new home here. Obviously, Strome, I debated Strome as well.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be very important. He's been great. I think Dubois is the guy here for me because his game, if Dubois is playing at his best when he's happy, his game very much is a playoff type style game.
Mhm.
He'll bring a little bit of scoring, but he'll be very aggressive. He'll be physical. He'll be good defensively. He'll be good on draws.
He's a decent playmaking.
Yes. He could be the main guy. If Dubois is at his absolute best and Washington makes a run, he might be one of the best options for Conn Smythe. And I think he's super important.
I think he's important too.
I think he could make a major difference. Now, round one, this is a weaker matchup. I'm going like whole playoffs here. So I'll say him.
Okay.
If we don't agree on this Montreal one, I don't really know what to tell you. I think it's pretty much a shoe-in that Montembeau's the X factor here because they're the big underdogs. He's gonna have a lot of work.
He's got to be lights out.
Yeah.
I don't view Montreal as super capable defensively.
No.
So he's gonna
better.
He's gonna have to stand on his head.
Yeah, but Montembeau needs to be the guy. So what's your prediction?
Prediction. I do think Washington does not struggle. I do think they give up a game.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Washington in 5.
I didn't mention Ryan Leonard as well. I think he could be a huge factor, kind of like what Nyes was in his first year. Yeah.
I haven't seen much.
He's good.
Okay.
He's ready now.
He's ready.
Yeah, he's like a Nyes. Maybe not like as like in the mix, but like energy. He'll the feet are moving and he'll produce.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought you'd be a little more like I didn't based on the way you were speaking. I thought you'd say more games.
I'm going 5. I think Washington, most likely case scenario. I think Washington wins both at home.
Okay.
I think Montreal goes back. They're excited. They're in their own barn. They take game 1 at home, or game 3, I guess, but their game 1 at home.
Yeah.
And I think Washington comes in, sneaks one on the way out, and goes back home and wins.
I'm going to say, I think that with the Thompson stuff, I'm not really 100% sure if he's going to play. We don't know if he's going to play or not.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't play, does Montreal maybe squeak a game here?
I think they get one. I also think that...
I mean, a game like in Washington in the first 2 games.
Oh.
My prediction is Washington in 7.
Going the distance.
Yeah. I think Montreal's going to give them difficulties. And maybe they jump out to a little bit of a lead. But I think once Washington kind of figures it out, maybe they start a little slow because they really haven't had much to play for in a long time. Montreal has, so they come out of the gates a little bit, but then Washington will kind of turn it on a little bit, bring it back up, and they'll close it out. I think they'll win in 7.
What line is Tom Wilson on?
Second line. He plays with Dubois.
What line is Goulet on defensive pairing? Is he 1 or 2? Because I also think Tom Wilson was a potential X factor for...
Oh, 100%.
There is... Who are you going to have who's going to slap the wrist of Tom Wilson?
Goulet plays with Hudson on the second pairing.
Okay. It's gonna, in my eyes, it kind of has to be Goulet. He's, in my eyes, the only one who's going to keep that guy in check. And if they don't get that matchup well, if they don't match those line pairings well, I think Tom Wilson could be absolutely a tornado out there.
100%.
And you want to talk keeping Montembeau as the X factor from Montreal? You let Tom...
100% he could be. I would consider Wilson big time.
I think that's going to be a big part as well, which is... And I don't know if they can do that well.
Yeah.
7. I love it, Drew. Okay.
Just...
Because why not?
Just like a little bit of the... Montreal's has something to play for. Washington hasn't. They come out a little slow.
Yeah.
Okay, last series in the East. Maybe this one could be a quick one because...
And do you want to do... Are we doing full distance playoffs?
I was just going to give you round 1 and then say who you have winning each conference and who wins the cup.
Okay. Because we can do this series by series.
I feel like we wait until we see the winners and then we do a second round one and pick the second round.
I like that idea.
Yeah. We can look at our brackets at the end and go through each one, but here we'll just you do your first round.
I like this.
Pick who you have East, West, final.
Okay.
Last season in the East is Carolina, New Jersey. Again, just like Washington, these two teams have been locked into their places for a long time, so they haven't really had much to play for, but both teams are in that boat. So it doesn't really change much. So Carolina, New Jersey. Carolina has had a little bit of drama throughout the season. Now that Rantanen is gone, it's kind of cooled off a bit. New Jersey has a lot. This is probably the biggest storyline is New Jersey's injuries. No Jack Hughes. I believe somebody else on the back end is out as well. That is important. Is it Kovacevic, maybe? Let me find it. Come on. No, not Carolina. I want New Jersey. Siegenthaler, sorry. Siegenthaler, who is a big piece. Kovacevic is healthy. Listen, I like Luke Hughes a lot, but first pairing for Luke Hughes is a lot of pressure on a young defenseman.
Yeah.
It sounds like Hamilton will be back for the playoffs, so that's big for them. Markstrom has obviously been a big factor, but 5-on-5 is an issue for them. They're very good on special teams, but 5-on-5 is a big issue for them, and is not for Carolina. Carolina is terrific 5-on-5. Not quite as strong as New Jersey on the special teams, Carolina, but most of the game is still played 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Looking through Carolina's lineup, the one thing with Carolina is the goaltending factor. First of all, who's going to start between Anderson and Kochetkov? And second, can they figure it out? Because that's been a big reason why Carolina struggles in the playoffs. The back end is not an issue. They're very strong. Obviously, like you have Slavin and Burns as two big, mean guys, terrific defensively. You have Orlov, you have Walker, you have Gostisbehere, you have Chatfield. Solid back end. The depth up front is terrific. Jackson Blake has looked right at home on that top line with Jarvis and Aho. Taylor Hall's been very good since he's come over. That third line, Martinook, Jordan Staal, Logan Stankoven, terrific third line. Even Roslovic on the fourth line is very strong. They're bringing this Nikishin guy in from Russia. It sounds like he finally got his visa, so he could be playing. Not sure he draws in right away, but maybe he does at some point. I think Carolina is just so good, 5-on-5, so much depth throughout that lineup. New Jersey is going to struggle to find goals. Normally, without Hughes, and against this team, they're definitely going to struggle to find goals.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know about you. The depth isn't quite as strong for New Jersey as it is for Carolina. The factor for Carolina for me would be goaltending, whereas Markstrom seems pretty settled, but the team in front of him isn't as strong.
So this is my X factor for Carolina. Is Freddie playing?
I don't know yet. We don't know yet. That's the thing. Who's starting? Do they go to the split?
I think you start Freddie and you see.
See, a lot of people out there saying Kochetkov deserves the spot.
I could understand that.
Yeah.
Kochetkov has terrible games. He just does sometimes. I think you start Freddie if he's hot-handed. You keep running him. I think goaltending is the biggest question mark of what's going to go on here. I don't worry about Carolina outside of goaltending. Yeah.
New Jersey,
I'm going to go Broad. Reason?
Well, I'm not saying for X Factor. I'm just saying your thoughts on the team.
New Jersey. I mean, not having Jack Hughes sucks.
Yeah.
I'm
looking at this lineup, and I'm outside of. Kishi had a very good goal-scoring season, but is he a guy that really generates a lot of offense on his own? It's going to be a lot from Broad.
It's going to be a lot of Broad.
Yeah.
And that's why. So not to open the can too early. Yeah. But that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's can he rise the occasion where you have Jack Hughes out, less playmaking, less offensive threat. You're going to need someone who can really step up and just do it on their own. And it's going to have to, in my eyes, fall on Broad. and he's going to have to be lighting it up if New Jersey even wants a shot.
Yeah. So all my X factors. So you're saying Freddie for Carolina?
I'm gonna go. Yeah, or just goaltending overall. If Freddie
Okay.
starts, it's gonna
Whoever the goalie is.
whoever the goalie
Yeah.
is.
So just Kochetkov / Freddie. For me, for Carolina, I'm gonna go Aho because
Really?
Carolina's style again for a full season is always a playoff style. So they never really. It's not an issue of how they play.
Yeah.
It's always historically been an issue. We talked about goaltending and scoring.
Mhm.
And Aho is their most talented player offensively.
Agreed.
With if Rantanen was there, probably argue Rantanen's probably a little bit better offensively, but Aho's complete game is probably better. But and I think he needs to be the guy offensively for this team. Again, I don't think it'll be a problem round one because of the matchup.
Yeah.
But once we get deeper, somebody has to take that step.
Yeah.
And I think Aho is kind of the de facto leader of this team. I know you have some guys that are a little older, and that might be more suited to like captain. But in this day and age, the best player is the leader.
You can see him.
Aho is the best player.
If he can rise to the occasion,
Yeah,
you can see how he'd be stepping forward in terms of the game.
for the whole playoffs. In New Jersey, I debated between a couple guys. New Jersey actually is very solid defensively this year, so it's not really been an issue. I thought about Markstrom maybe, but New Jersey has been semi-successful without terrific goaltending before, so I don't think it's like a major impact.
They can win 7-6 games.
Yeah. So I kind of looked at the forwards, and I thought about Bratt as well, but I'm gonna go with Hischier, kind of similar to Aho. Not entirely. I think the offense will fall more on Bratt than it would on Hischier. But Hischier's the captain. He's the leader of this team. He's a very good two-way player. So I think if they're going to cause problems, he's going to be the guy that sets the tone that makes the impact as a full offensive, defensive, penalty kill, power play, draws, everything. Hischier is that type of player. So he will be the driving force behind if the Devils are going to cause some problems here.
Okay.
But obviously, with the injuries, especially to Hughes, that's a big factor for New Jersey.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with what you're saying overall. And I think if Jack Hughes was here, it'd be a different conversation. I think it's going to be New Jersey. Can you get it done? Can your offense step up?
Yeah.
And play?
They're good. They got to hope Carolina takes penalties.
Yeah.
And even then, Carolina's penalty kill is strong. It's the power play that's not strong, but New Jersey is strong on both sets of special teams. Carolina's strong on the penalty kill, not so much on the power play, but if New Jersey's strong power play comes up against Carolina's strong penalty kill, it's who's going to win that.
I also think there is an element where, in this series in particular, coaching's going to play a factor.
Yeah.
I think that if you don't think Rod is going to have his guys ready to go, and is going to expect excellence and be coaching to excellence, you're out to lunch.
Yeah.
Keith, how have you done in the playoffs?
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it going?
Yeah.
When you're under the gun.
Yeah. And this is when Toronto's fully healthy.
When Toronto's fully
not so much last year, but
even so.
Yeah.
When Nylander missed a game.
Couple. Matthews missed a couple.
Were you able to get your guys to rally?
And Toronto's team has more overall talent than New Jersey's team.
So you have Jack Hughes out. Keith, how are you adapting? And I know he's been out for a little bit, so you've had more of an opportunity too.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if they don't win game one, if New Jersey doesn't come out and take game one, what are the changes? What are the adaptations that Keith can implement in order to prove that they can get a series done? I think that's going to be a relevant kind of thing to take place. I think Rod is outclassing Keith a little bit in terms of just his knowledge, in terms of how he reads the game, in terms of how he likes.
Then he's been around longer as well.
Been around longer. And
at this level,
and been in the league.
Yeah.
Has won a cup himself.
Yeah. Not as a coach, but yeah.
Yeah, not as a coach, but like has been in that position before, knows what it takes. Captain, leader of his team. to have that in a coaching staff, I think is phenomenal. And I think it's going to be relevant to whether or not Carolina or New Jersey gets the job done.
Yeah.
I'm going Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it as 6.
Okay.
I just think that the 5-on-5 play for Carolina is too strong to overcome. I think Jack Hughes being out it sucks. I think that Carolina's capabilities in terms of shutting down the offensive guys on New Jersey is going to be too much to handle. I don't think I'm a little worried about goaltending on Carolina, but I don't think it's going to be.
I think it's more of a problem later in the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't think it's an issue in the series.
I don't think it's going to be close.
You're going forward?
I'm going Carolina in a sweep. Maybe one at home.
Yeah.
I really don't see it. They're really going to struggle.
Yeah.
They're really going to struggle. Okay, let's go out west. Let's start in the Central. We're going to start in Winnipeg. The President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets will play the hottest team in the league, the St. Louis Blues, in round 1. Obviously, the biggest storyline here is Winnipeg is kind of the Toronto of the West.
Yeah.
Can they get over the hump? They struggle in the playoffs.
Okay.
Against a team who maybe struggles in the regular season at times, but if they get in,
I think
you just never know with them.
You've got a group of guys in St. Louis who are bought in.
Yeah.
They're bought into each other. They're bought into.
Not that the Winnipeg guys aren't.
Not that they aren't.
Yeah.
But when you've got a hot Cairo, when you've got Buchnevich, when you've got Holloway, when you've got some of these guys.
Holloway's hurt.
Holloway's hurt.
Yeah.
So he's not playing.
Could be a factor. I don't know how long he's out for. He could play.
You've got.
Could be a factor, though.
Could be a factor because he's been good recently. You've got Jordan freaking Bennington in the pipes.
So here's
won the Four Nations phase.
Here's the two things. So you got Bennington against Hellebuck again.
Oh.
That was the Canada-U.S. goalies. Obviously, it's funny because the Canadian guy plays for the American team. The American guy plays for the Canadian team now. And the other thing is it's the Shen brothers against each other.
I love that.
Those are two things there. Sorry to interrupt.
I like how St. Louis has rallied and squeaked out the playoff spot. They got the job done. They did what they were supposed to do. They frankly overperformed the second half of the season in order to get to where they are today. Okay, Winnipeg.
Is it the 2019 St. Louis Blues all over again?
It would be so fun if it was.
Yeah.
Go to Winnipeg. Okay, Kyle Connor, phenomenal goal scorer, fantastic. You've got some. Oh, they're okay. They're okay defensively. They're not terrible.
They're pretty strong now.
They're not bad.
Yeah, they're strong.
Hellebuck. Hell of a buck to have in net.
This is the he's gonna be the back-to-back Vezina winner, 3-time Vezina winner, but he always has issues come playoff time. Last year was his worst outing yet.
Scheifele, Perfetti's okay right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's what I'll say.
Okay.
New coach.
Jimmy.
New coach. So but he was on the previous staff. So the system hasn't changed a whole lot. I believe they defend a little better. My biggest question mark outside of Hellebuck performing in the playoffs is that the big guns on their team, it seems that they struggle with playoff style. It's literally a carbon copy of the Leafs outside of the Leafs don't have a Vezina winner in net.
And Kyle Connor scored.
Connor, Scheifele. It's not that they don't put points on the board. It's that can they handle the playoff style? And so far, that's a no. just like the guys in Toronto. A big thing, you look at the Four Nations face-off, Connor made the team. He didn't play a lot. Because if he's not scoring, what else does he bring? Not much. Scheifele didn't make Team Canada. A lot of people are saying, well, this guy shouldn't make Team Canada. He's doing this on the score sheet. Great, but he's not going to play over McDavid or McKinnon or Crosby. So what's he going to do in a depth role? His game doesn't really work with that. So it's that style of play. Can they do it in the playoffs? Winnipeg chose not to go out and get more center depth at the deadline, so you're still rolling the Mesnikov and Lowry, who are very good players. But do I trust either of them as the second line center? Not 100%. They have depth up. They have tons of winger depth. They brought Brandon Tanev in, who's a very good playoff guy. You have Niederreiter, you have Iafallo, you have Perfetti. So it's there. Velarde is obviously out. I believe he's out for the year. No, not yet. He could play. And Ehlers is out as well. It's week to week, so it doesn't sound like he's playing this week. Possibly next week. Maybe. I think Morrissey has taken huge strides in his overall game this year, not just offensively. And they're big on the back end.
Parayko.
That's St. Louis, not Winnipeg.
Oh, sorry.
You have like Stanley, Shen, DeMello, Pionk. They're big bodies on the back end. It's just a matter of can those big guys play more of a style that suits the playoffs. Now, if you go to St. Louis, again, hottest team in the league. Binnington is maybe not the best regular season goalie, but he's a big game goalie. And again, just like that, St. Louis are big on the back end, not quite as big, but they're still big, but they can move. Parayko, Fowler, Broberg, Leddy as a third pairing is a very good third pairing guy. And on the front, they can move as well, and they have some big bodies, right? This Jimmy Snuggerud guy has come in, and he fits like a glove. Another young guy coming in. This Zach Bolduc guy, great rookie season. You mentioned Kyrou. Braden Shen's a great second-line center. He still plays that 200-foot game. Robert Thomas. Terrific season. You look at St. Louis in the beginning of the year, they struggled when he was out hurt. Since he came back, St. Louis looks a different team. The biggest factor for St. Louis's change is obviously the coaching change. Jim Montgomery has come in. They've looked terrific, especially since the Four Nations. Those players that played that were great for St. Louis, like Binnington, like Parayko, have come back, looked great. It's a toss-up.
Yeah.
It's a very big toss-up here. It's, do you believe these Winnipeg guys, again, it's kind of the same breath as Washington, Montreal, maybe not quite as much because St. Louis is probably a stronger team than Montreal, but it's a team that has had something to play for right up until the end of the season, where Winnipeg is kind of not. Not that they've ever really had a bad stretch. They played well all year, but they haven't. Yeah, you want to win the President's Trophy. That's all well and good, but it's not like, who cares, really?
No one remembers.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, what do you value more? X factors. Winnipeg.
You go first.
Hellebuck. I don't think it's. Winnipeg would have made the playoffs if Hellebuck wasn't their goalie, if they had another starter somewhere, just a normal starter, solid starter. Winnipeg would have been a playoff team, but they wouldn't have been anywhere near the President's Trophy without Hellebuck. But Hellebuck has historically struggled in the playoffs. Can he change that? Because I think he papers over cracks in their team, because Winnipeg's team on paper is not a President's Trophy winning team. They're a very good team. They aren't, if you don't have Hellebuck, you wouldn't put them as near the top of the standings, a cup contender. Hellebuck determines everything for them.
I'm going to deviate only for a minor reason. I'm going to go Kyle Connor,
Okay.
X Factor, purely because I think that based on how he's played this year, based on the Four Nations, I don't worry as much this year about Hellbuck in the playoffs. I think he's going
I'm not saying I'm worried about him. I'm saying he's the driving force behind the team.
Yeah.
He has to be unbelievable.
Reason I'm going with Kyle Connor is Hellbuck can be absolutely outstanding, but if Winnipeg can't score any goals, it doesn't matter. Like St. Louis is going to find a way. They'll score a goal in a game.
Yeah.
If Winnipeg, if no one on Winnipeg can step up offensively, and I think it has to fall on Kyle Connor because guess what? You just did it in the regular season.
Yeah.
If you can't adapt your game, they have no shot. I don't think. So I don't view Hellbuck as a liability. I don't view him.
I'm not saying he's a liability.
No.
Yeah.
But I think that he's so strong and so talented that if they win, he will be a major factor in it, and is arguably their best shot at winning some series is him playing out of his mind and continuing to play out of his mind. But I think in terms of what is going to be a difference maker, it is the offensive capabilities of Winnipeg actually translating to playoff style hockey and being able to actually find a way through to Binnington, which is why I'm going to go with an offensive player. And I think it has to fall on Kyle Connor because guess what? You're the big gun.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree. Maybe if Winnipeg does advance past this round, you look more into the future. You're playing like Colorado or Dallas next round. Yeah. So I'm kind of like looking whole playoffs here.
I'm going series by series.
I understand that. I'm just saying, like as a whole, Hellbuck.
If they go in a deep run, it will be because of Hellbuck.
Yeah.
I view it as in this series, it's is your offense there?
Yeah.
That's
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. St. Louis?
Jordan Binnington is my X factor. The guy knows. The guy's a gamer.
Yep.
The guy seems to have some maturity. The guy's still a psycho. He'll still fight a guy. Okay? I think the players on St. Louis are coming in with a whole lot of confidence, a whole lot of momentum. They like playing with each other. They figured it out. They've got a good head behind the bench. I don't worry about that. If Jordan Binnington can find it, who knows how far these guys can go.
Yeah.
So I'm going Binnington as the X factor because your job is going to be, if those top end guys do show up on Winnipeg, you're going to have to be in your A game because they are talented guys. St. Louis has to be careful with taking penalties, but I do think Binnington's got to be the guy that takes the helm of this and takes that intensity that we saw in the Four Nations and brings it to the playoffs this year.
Okay. So we're flip flopping. One's going goalie on one team. One's going goalie on the other. I'm gonna go Robert Thomas.
Okay.
I think he's so underrated. I think he's so important not only to this team, and I think if he played in a bigger market, he would get more recognition. Two-way player, can play a very good playoff style. I think he is the piece that kind of turned it around. Maybe not completely. I wouldn't say they were like unbelievable when he came. Like when Montgomery came and Thomas came, they weren't like flying out of the gates, but they were a lot better than what they were previously. Yeah. And then obviously in the second half, they've been the best team in the league.
He's not additive; he's multiplicative.
But he is extremely. He is the most important skater on their team to me. If you look at St. Louis, when St. Louis won the Cup, who was the most important player on that team? Outside of Binnington, it's Ryan O'Reilly was the most important player. And you could argue Pietrangelo as well. But St. Louis doesn't have a defenseman of Pietrangelo's level.
Yeah.
But on this roster. Yeah. Very good players, but not at that level. Yeah. Petro, at that point, was top 3 defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah.
So I'll say Thomas. Okay. So now we're going to go to the other series in the Central, which is...
Before we pick a winner, who wins the series?
Oh, I forgot. Forgot to say who wins the series. Go ahead.
St. Louis Blues win this series. St. Louis Blues edge it out. Unfortunately for Connor Hellebuyck, his team does not get it together. They do not produce offensively. and the St. Louis Blues begin another playoff run that no one saw coming.
I agree. St. Louis in 6. The Jets don't have a playoff style game. They don't play a playoff style game.
I don't think they can do it. I'll go 6 again too.
Okay. So probably the best series on paper. If you take away, like, if you just put team versus team, no rivalries, just rivalries aside, probably the best matchup here is Dallas, Colorado in the first round. Obviously, the big storyline is that Rantanen is playing against Colorado in the first round. We've expected that for a long time. Dallas made a little bit of a push to try to get first over Winnipeg, but it didn't pan out. So it's been pretty locked in for a while that these two would play each other.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously a big thing in this series is Rantanen playing against Colorado. A big thing with Colorado the whole year has been the quick changeover of the roster, and it's worked. And they've been terrific. Dallas has consistently been one of the strongest teams in the NHL the whole year and are one of the deepest teams, especially at forward. But there's some injury things here with Dallas. The biggest one being Miro Heiskanen. When he was announced that he would miss the Four Nations, I don't think anyone expected him to be out this long.
No.
Dallas has other solid defensemen, but no one at that level.
Nope.
Ottinger has proven he can do it in the playoffs before, but for stretches. He hasn't done it for a whole playoff. He's had a really good series here, and then nothing like horrible, but just like a normal series, and then a really good series, and then a normal series. I look at Dallas's lineup right now, and Seguin is in the lineup, so it sounds like he's going to play.
Okay. Wow.
Hintz will be very important as well.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been his normal self. Maybe the past couple of years. Not as strong as he has been. Obviously, Granlund was a very good pickup for them. Duchesne's had a great year. Seguin, what is he going to do coming off injury?
And if he goes back in that line with Duchesne,
he is. Right now, it's Marchment, Duchesne, and Seguin.
Okay.
Their first line at the moment, another big thing is that Jason Robertson, we had talked about, is out week to week. And he and Wyatt Johnston have heated up in the second half here. And have been a big reason why Dallas pushed for first in the division. And then you have Rantanen, who's looked a lot better in Dallas than what he did in Carolina.
Yeah.
The first line right now is Ben, Johnston, and Rantanen, which is a very solid line. It's a solid line. They're big. They can be mean, but they can put the puck in the net as well. So it's a very strong line. But Dallas has kind of limped in here.
A little bit.
Where Colorado is flying in.
Mm-hmm.
They've had the opportunity to rest some of their big guns in the last week here.
Their goalies are fine enough.
Yeah. So, what do we think? Do we think Dallas can handle it? Heiskanen is so important to them.
You've got so much talent on Colorado.
And Colorado.
It is going to be every single line on, frankly, both sides.
And that center depth now.
Are going to be hammered.
Yeah.
Interesting that Seguin's back. That adds a little bit of a spice to
Colorado. You got Nichushkin healthy. Landeskog possibly playing.
Possibly. I think the biggest thing is Dallas, are you ready? That's how I kind of view this.
Yeah.
Colorado's coming in, they're doing well. They're just if you were to build an NHL hockey team, you'd probably build one like Colorado has built. Heiskanen. I think the biggest thing is going to be, hey, Dallas's decor, how are you going to step up here? It's every single fucking line is very capable.
How are you going to deal with McKinnon without Heiskanen?
How are you going to deal with McKinnon? How are you going to deal with freaking Brock Nelson? How are you going to deal with all of these guys that are mature players that are gamers?
Yeah.
Necas. Like, don't overlook freaking Necas. their goaltending's fine enough. So, their defense is fine enough.
Colorado doesn't need elite goaltending. They've shown that in
No.
the past.
And so
They just need them to not be terrible like they were at the beginning of the season.
yeah. I think honestly the biggest ask is of Dallas. The biggest ask is of Dallas of are you ready to match this?
Yeah.
Ottinger, you better be freaking awake. You better be ready because this is gonna be tough games every single game.
Yep.
I don't think they're coming in cold. So I think this is a very compelling matchup. I think this is gonna be so entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
I'm tuning into every game.
Yeah, I maybe was a little strong. Florida Tampa is pretty similar to this series in
Yeah.
terms of the level, but Dallas Colorado, two teams who could very conceivably go on and win the cup.
Yeah.
And one of them will be out in the first round, just like Florida and Tampa in the East.
I have another worry, which is Duchesne. Duchesne's had a phenomenal season.
You're playing against that team, that Colorado team that he played for at the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
A little bit of pressure.
He's gonna have to keep it going.
Yeah.
I think the biggest worry, the biggest worry is just decor.
The back end for Dallas. Yeah. That's been their Achilles heel for the past few years. They made deep runs and they've been in the West Conference Final a bunch.
Yeah.
They just that depth on the defensive core. Can they make that deep run? And without Heiskanen, that's tough. That's really tough. And that's not to discredit because Dallas has tons of depth up front and they should be able to handle injuries to Robertson, right?
Yeah.
For a short term. Obviously not long term, but it's just tough. Colorado's a hot team. I don't know. If Heiskanen was healthy, even if you came in and said Heiskanen's healthy and Robertson's out week to week, I think I'm still like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Like the Florida Tampa series, I don't know.
Mhm.
But with the injuries out, like you take one of Robertson or Heiskanen out, I could probably say, it's maybe a toss up. But I think Heiskanen, especially being out, is the biggest
There's
factor.
less of a plug who can go in there and do that same job.
Yeah. Okay, X factors
for Dallas. Rantanen.
Okay.
This isn't a one. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
We're flying in. We're playing a game.
You're playing every night. At least 4 games.
At least 4 games.
Yeah, probably more.
I want him to get emotional. I want him to come out and be like, "You guys didn't even talk to me. You guys didn't even ask."
Yeah.
I want him to come in. I want him. He's a pretty big guy. I don't know how physical he is.
He's not overly physical, but
I want him blowing guys up.
Yeah.
I want you to go out there and be like, "Hey, I don't need to play with Nate Dogg in order to be an absolute stud."
He's been very good for Dallas.
He has. Time to find another level. Time to play with some emotion, a little bitterness, a little grit, a little edge on your shoulder to prove something.
Prove you didn't need McKinnon, you didn't need McCarr to win that cup.
I think that is my X factor for them. If they're going to overcome this defensive liability, so to speak, I think guys like Rantanen are going to have to really step up. The other guys are kind of par for the course. In terms of guys who can step up and actually challenge and get them across this line and make our goaltending is fine look a little bit more like a question mark, guys like Rantanen are going to have to kind of come forward, and that's my X factor for them.
Listen, I don't think Dallas has a lot of weaknesses here. I just think Colorado is just such a strong team, and they're a hot team.
Mhm.
And Dallas just has that injury problem. I don't think goaltending is a problem for Dallas. Even without Robertson, their forwards shouldn't be that much of an issue. It's just who they're playing against.
Mhm.
Dallas was my preseason cup pick.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. For the Dallas X factor for me, because of Heiskanen, this is a player I like a lot who doesn't really get a lot of recognition. Gets a little more now because of the Four Nations face-off. But Thomas Harley is going to be the guy that needs to step up most for Dallas on the back end. Other players do too. It needs to be by committee. But Harley's the one that can play both ends of the ice. That needs to step up the most for Dallas for me.
Yeah.
And he showed lots of glimpses of that throughout his time in Dallas and with Canada. But we're talking a much bigger beast here because you don't have the players you were playing with for Canada, and you don't even have Heiskanen anymore. So it's time. You have to step up big time here for Colorado.
I don't know. I don't know.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
So here's what I'm going to say. So Colorado won the Cup in 2022. They had Makar. They had McKinnon. Rantanen was on the right wing. You had Darcy Kemper in net. There's one player on there that I didn't mention that they have struggled to replace mightily since that Cup run. Why they haven't been able to get back. So Kemper, very good goalie, had a terrific season in LA. He struggled a little bit in Washington since he left Colorado, but he wasn't anything outstanding.
Mhm.
And I think Blackwood is just solid.
It's fine.
Doesn't need to be outstanding for this team to win the Cup. Just needs to do his job.
Mhm.
That's it. They have that. You still have Makar, best defenseman in the world. You still have McKinnon, arguably one of the best players, arguably the best player in the world, at least top 3.
Yeah.
Not quite to Rantanen's level, but Natchez comes in, and he's been great. The chemistry's been great with McKinnon. Maybe he kind of fits Colorado's high-tempo style a little better than what Rantanen does.
Mhm.
Not saying he's a better player than Rantanen. I think Rantanen's still a better player, but Natchez can fill that void.
Mhm.
The biggest struggle Colorado has had to fill since then is that second line center since Nazem Kadri has left. So my X factor is Brock Nelson. Because Brock Nelson has been the guy to come in at the deadline. He's the guy to fill those shoes. He has never really had a deep playoff run with the Islanders, which he's been there his whole career. So let's see what he does. He's very capable, a very good two-way player. He puts up points. He scores goals. But can he do it when it matters most?
Yeah.
Can he fill that void? That's the biggest thing that Colorado has been missing in these past 2 seasons since they last won the Cup.
Okay. So I'm going to follow a similar line of thinking. I just want to make sure. Say play today. I don't know. I think I'm going to follow your similar line of thinking. I'll go Nelson, and I also want to call out Drouin a little bit.
Okay.
Another guy who, like, young player who I think kind of has a reputation but underperforms every year.
Yeah.
I think if you want to talk another guy who needs to step up a little bit and who could, because I view X factors as like reasons you're going to win or what's going to get you across the line of someone who overperforms, and I think Drouin probably plays a role in that. So I'll go if they win that second line, third line will step up, match some of that.
Yeah, that's legit.
Talented depth.
Yeah.
So I'll go Drouin.
Okay. Who's winning?
Colorado's way. Heiskanen's going to be too much.
Missing him, yeah.
Colorado is just too. Yeah. It's 4 straight lines of hey, how are you? You're gonna have
the center depth. McKinnon, Nelson, Coyle, Drury. It's endless.
Coyle, I even forgot about Coyle.
Yeah.
Like they're just nasty.
It's endless. You still have Lehkonen in there as a playoff guy. You like we mentioned the guys that were coming back. You mentioned Drew, and even if Landeskog plays a third, fourth line role, if he's at his best, that's a mean motherfucker to play against in the playoffs.
I don't love Seguin coming in after this massive layoff.
Yeah, but now that Robertson's out, you kind of You have to.
Which is where it's like you're being forced into moves not because you want to try something out, but because
I think he still comes in. I just don't. I think he gets more ice time than what he would have.
34.
I don't know the exact age, but he's in his 30s for sure. I agree. I go Avs in 6.
Yeah, I'll go.
Dallas is still a good team.
Yeah,
there's no pushover.
I'll push it. I'll go Avs in 7.
Okay. This series, kind of like the Carolina New Jersey series, we can maybe fly by a little bit. Vegas, Minnesota.
Sorry, Minnesota.
Sorry to Minnesota. Minnesota had a terrific start to the season. They looked terrific. Obviously, without Kaprizov mostly, but you have also had Eriksson Ek out. He had a little bit of injury problems, so they've kind of fell back a bit. They hung on. Those guys have since been back a little bit. They got a little hot. But Vegas is, again, just such a deep team. You look at center, you got Eichel, you got Hertl, you got Carlson, right? And even on the wings, they're deep. On the back end, they're super deep. Aiden Hill's solid in net. The biggest factor will be probably for Minnesota will be can they find enough goals to beat this team?
Yeah.
because it's not. Minnesota's a terrific defensive team.
And I think you're also going to need Gustafson to really
Yeah,
play
yeah.
up a little bit here.
Like again, their D core is very good. They've brought Zeev Buium in as well.
Yeah.
From college, another very good player. So, is this the final series of Marc-Andre Fleury's career? If he even gets in at all, who knows?
Yeah, I just think it's too much to ask of them.
It's a lot to ask of Minnesota. Vegas has just quietly took a stranglehold on the division.
Again.
No injury problems really this year. They haven't had to milk the LTIR like they normally do.
Carlson's been back for several weeks.
Yeah.
He's been playing well.
Yeah. So, you can't blame Mark Stone LTIR magic here. Not really too many injuries on both ends though.
No.
Pretty healthy on both ends. Like, yeah, Vegas, you got Stone, you got Barbashev, you got Saad, you got Dorofeyev on the wing. Riley Smith came over at the deadline. Oh, it's deep.
Yeah.
It's deep. X factors.
X factors
for Vegas.
For Vegas?
Want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I debated a couple guys. I didn't want to say Eichel because I feel like that was just boring. I think he obviously will be super important to their success. He's been unbelievable, his best regular season, and even just has been great since he's come to Vegas. I thought about Theodore a little bit as well because I think he's kind of taken the mantle from Petro a little bit as the number one D. But they're so deep on D. They have so many good, strong guys who are big, who can skate, they're physical. So I'm not gonna go D. I'm gonna go up front, and I'm gonna go Mark Stone, because this is the first time in a long time Mark Stone comes into the playoffs fully healthy. And he obviously has been able to do it very well coming in off of injury. So imagine what a healthy Mark Stone could do.
Yeah, I'll replicate that too, just because Mark Stone's a set the tone guy.
Yeah,
he's a very
set the playoff guy. Yeah. He's a playoff guy.
So I think the only reason I think you're going to put him as an X factor in my eyes, like outside of all the reasons you've said, is he makes sure that they start the series right.
And a leader.
And he's going to set that
leader.
Right from the get-go.
Yeah.
I'll go him an X factor as well then.
And then he can put some points on the board as well, especially playing on a line with Eichel, right? Mm-hmm. But like a shout out to like Dorofeyev has had a very good season. Let's see if he can do it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hurdle, second line center. We'll see there. Minnesota.
It's gonna have to be Gustafson.
Yeah.
It's your only shot.
I'm gonna go Kaprizov because even if Gustafson does play well, Minnesota has to find a way to score somewhere. Somewhere they have to score at some point. If you're going to win 4 games against this team, you have to find goals somewhere. And when Kaprizov was out, they really struggled to do it.
Yeah, and I think you could probably bundle in, can Eriksson Ek, has he found God?
Yeah. And I think a big factor is going to be, can Minnesota's center depth handle Vegas' center depth? Listen, Eriksson Ek is a very good player. I wouldn't necessarily put him as an out-and-out first-line center.
No.
I think he's a solid first-line center. But on like a very, very good team, he's probably a second-line guy. Mm-hmm. You have Rossi, you have Gaudreau as your second, third-line centers. Again, good players.
Rossi's not bad.
But can they handle this Vegas team? It'll be tough. Boldy's a guy you want to look out for too, because I feel like he's a playoff guy. Mm-hmm. He's a big physical power forward. So that could be a guy, maybe help Kaprizov out a little bit on the score sheet. But they've stacked that first line. It's Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Boldy.
Yeah.
So that line is going to have to score a lot.
Yeah.
Like on the back end, they're very solid on the back end. Very good defensive team. Even up front, they're very good defensively. So if they can keep the scoring from Vegas to a minimum, can Kaprizov do enough to put them over the hump? I don't think it's as lopsided as people think it is. I still think Vegas is a strong favorite, but I don't think it's as lopsided as people may say.
I'm going Vegas in 4.
You think sweep?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm going Vegas in 5.
Okay.
And that's no disrespect to Minnesota.
No.
I just think Vegas is a very tough place to play as well.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah. Okay, the last series.
Edmonton, Los Angeles.
For the fourth season in a row, we have an LA Edmonton first round series, but for the first time, LA has home ice. And that's a major factor in this series because LA is one of the best home teams in the NHL and one of the worst road teams in the NHL. So that's a big factor. Another big factor of this is more injuries.
Yeah.
Edmonton has big injury problems here. We mentioned, did I say anything about Ekholm? I don't think I mentioned it.
No.
Ekholm sounds like he could be out long term. He's definitely not going to play in this series, it sounds like.
Uh-oh.
He might miss the whole playoffs altogether.
Uh-oh.
He is their most important defensive player. Draisaitl and McDavid have had some injury issues coming in. They're both back. But are they fully there? It sounds like Evander Kane is going to play right off the bat, but he hasn't played in a long time. He's a playoff guy, but can he just come right in? Trent Frederick, it sounds like he's kind of questionable.
Yeah.
And he hasn't played a lot for Edmonton. He's been hurt most of the time since he's been dealt. So the injury front for Edmonton is not looking too strong. Whereas LA looks healthy. They have home ice. They've looked terrific at home this year. Byfield has taken a step. Excuse me. Kemper's been very solid in net. LA's had some goalie issues over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Kemper seems to have solved that. Since Doughty's been back, LA has been terrific.
Yeah.
What do we think?
I think there's trouble in paradise in Edmonton. I think they're going to get frustrated. I think McDavid's going to get frustrated.
And again, another team, lots of center depth, very good two-way players. They could. We've talked about it in the past 3 seasons, but now with McDavid and Draisaitl not being 100% here, they're kind of just coming back. Can these guys shut it down now that Byfield has taken a step as well?
So it's a big conversation. I think that Ekholm out huge. That's number one. That's number one.
That's the number one factor here.
I do not trust Stuart Skinner.
Skinner was another factor. He's kind of struggled a bit this year. He looked a lot better in the regular season last year than he did this past season. And he's had a little bit of injuries throughout the season.
Yeah.
So obviously he has a little bit of experience now. They've gone to Game 7 of the Cup final. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily because of him.
No. I still think Draisaitl is going to show up. I
don't think McDavid and Draisaitl are not going to show up.
They've still got some gamers.
But can they make up for the rest of the lineup?
They've got a lot of firepower. I just think defensively, they're going to struggle a lot.
And Kuzmenko has been very good since he's gone to LA. We didn't mention Kempe. Kopitar's still doing it. We talked about Byfield. He's on a line of Fiala and Laferriere. They've been solid. Yeah. Moore, Deneau, Fogle, great third line.
I view LA as very like meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
They're just solid.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's like they don't have a McDavid per se.
They don't have a Draisaitl. They don't have a McDavid.
But through the line, they know what they're doing. They're just good.
And even without the injuries for Edmonton, this team isn't as good as last year. No. Even if they were fully healthy. No. Do I think if they were fully healthy, they're still a favorite here. The betting favorite is Edmonton here. But if they're fully healthy, are they probably the favorite over LA? Yes. But is this team as good as that team that made Game 7 of the Cup final? No. Nowhere near. You got rid of some young players who were key pieces. You're a little slower. You're not as big. Can this team do it in the playoffs? Repeat what they did in the playoffs last year? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think that calling out the home advantage is big.
Yeah.
I think LA is very good at home. I think that
Nugent Hopkins isn't quite what he has been the past couple of years.
No, it's been 2-3 years since he's had a really solid season.
Now, I'll give Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner a little bit of credit. They have been better. Okay. This is Jeff Skinner's first ever playoff appearance. I know Jack doesn't like Jeff Skinner. I'll give them a little bit of credit. They've been a little better, but are these guys come playoff time that are going to do it?
Nope.
Maybe Arvidsson, maybe. But because he hasn't been great all season, I'm not confident. If he had a stronger regular season, I'd be a little more confident.
I think So what?
Like Colson on the second line, Connor Brown on the first line. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for me.
I really like Quentin Byfield finally taking a step.
Yeah.
I think that is solid. I also think it's a phenomenal call out. Kuzmenko's looked very good in LA.
Yeah.
He's scoring. He's looking physical.
Yeah.
I just think that it's not going to be a walk in the park.
Edmonton on the back end too.
I think LA is going to get this done.
Yeah. So who's your X factor? LA.
For LA, my X factor, it's either Kuzmenko or Byfield, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Byfield because I think it's gonna be a young guy.
He's a center.
He's a center. I think he's gonna start to get some playoff experience, and time to start scoring in the playoffs. And I think he will. I think he's ready, and he's been in the league for a decent amount of time, and he's finally ready to make that step.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Quentin Byfield to contribute more offensively and get LA across the line.
For LA, for me, historically, what they have had trouble with Edmonton, again, we touched on it. What Edmonton has that LA doesn't that can get them over the line here is they have a talents like McDavid and Draisaitl. Yeah. Okay. LA doesn't have anyone anywhere close to that.
Any given night, those guys can combine for 4 points.
They can take over and win games on their own, right? But it's the help around them is a lot weaker than what it once was. And LA has always been a very strong, good defensive team. Tons of depth at center with guys that play both ends.
Solid systems.
The biggest thing with LA has been goaltending. So that's why I'm going to say Kemper.
Okay.
Because Kemper's been very good this year. And Kemper has won a cup in Colorado. But he didn't need to be particularly outstanding to win that cup. No. He did his job. He couldn't be bad, which with LA, I think is similar, but for a different reason, because LA is so good and strong defensively. But I think specifically this series, I don't think you can ever completely shut down McDavid and Draisaitl. Just like a guy like McKinnon, I don't think you can completely shut them down. Mm-hmm. Maybe one night you can completely shut down, but for over a 7-game series, at some point those guys are gonna do something. They're gonna get theirs. Yeah. So I'm gonna say Kemper because that's been LA's Achilles heel specifically against Edmonton is goaltending. Okay. For Edmonton,
if Edmonton wins this series, why do they win this series? If they win this series,
you want me to go?
Yeah.
Ekholm is the biggest miss.
Yeah.
Just like Dallas with Heiskanen. So Harley has to be the guy to step up. For Edmonton, I know Nurse will probably have to take on more of what Ekholm's role was as the defensive player. But I think Edmonton's capability of going the distance last year was a little bit of scoring from the back end, and that was from Evan Bouchard. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say Evan Bouchard because he has had tough stretches this season, and his defensive play has been called out a lot. And his offensive play hasn't been quite what it was in the previous season. So I think he was a big factor in why Edmonton took that next step was scoring from the back end last year. And I think he needs to do that again. And I think he needs to be better defensively. Whether it's even if maybe not necessarily in this series because LA isn't going to light the lamp like crazy offensively. So if they do get by LA, now you got to do it against Vegas, most likely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to say Bouchard good pick. Because Ekholm is so important that he has to be the next guy up.
I'm going to go a different approach. I'm going to say you got to gloss over the weaknesses. You got to fill the cracks, and that means more up front.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, and I'm going to say if they win this series, it is because Leon Draisaitl is in sicko mode.
Yeah.
I think him and McDavid are so fucking pissed off.
Yeah.
They hated losing it. I want to see Leon Draisaitl get similar to how I want Rantanen to do it. I want Leon Draisaitl to get a little emotional in this playoffs round. I want him to say this. Listen, I understand McDavid.
I don't need McDavid.
Bingo. I'm just gonna.
You've shown it this season.
You showed it this season. Bingo.
Can he do it in the playoffs?
I don't care who's on my team. I'm gonna go
because he was called out in the finals a little bit last year.
Yeah. So I think if they can surmount this, I think it's because Leon's gotten
Yeah.
real hot, and he's going to take command of this team and let McDavid take a little bit of a back seat and do his thing.
Yeah.
Because even honestly, even in the Four Nations, McDavid didn't. We spoke about this. McDavid didn't stand out for a
No.
lot of the games.
No.
And so I think if you can,
He had plays, but he didn't
He had some plays,
dominate
yeah.
the whole game.
And so I think if you can have Draisaitl step up and allow McDavid just to focus on his game and not feel as much pressure to be doing all the goal scoring, to be doing these crazy breakaways, to be doing everything playmaking wise, and then get criticized for defensive play. I think if Draisaitl can do it, it can gloss over some of the defensive weaknesses because I don't know how capable. I don't know how capable Edmonton's defense is in terms of
Yeah.
stepping up and filling
Yeah.
that. So I think they're going to have to take the approach of we're just going to kill them with volume.
I still think it's very possible they win this series, but
Yeah.
beyond that, I see Edmonton having a hard time.
Does it go 7?
Did you make your pick?
Los Angeles.
And
7.
I'm going LA at 7 as well. I'm going to say because you have the factor of McDavid and Draisaitl can take over a game, and there's a little bit of LA struggles against Edmonton in the playoffs as evidence they've lost the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have home ice, so the best team on home ice in the NHL this year. So that's a big factor because they have 4 home games instead of just 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they start the series at home as well. That's a big factor.
Yeah. That's why I think
they don't have to go into Edmonton raucous crowd, right? But LA as a team overall is a much stronger team, and they have better goaltending.
Yeah.
Just Edmonton has a little bit of a mind game over LA, which is why I'm going to say it goes 7. But I think Kemper has been solid enough in the net that LA's gotten rid of those goaltending issues. They have enough defensively. They're a strong defensive team that they can shut down those 2 players enough that they can get through and get to the second round.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, that's every series. That's our playoff preview, but we're not done yet. We have to pick our Western and Eastern Conference champions. What is your Stanley Cup final? Don't name your winner yet.
My Stanley Cup final.
Give me your reasons.
I'm gonna go Toronto versus Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I want to.
Because you're a homer, but yeah.
I think this is a big kind of catalyst year for Toronto, and I have faith that Mitch Marner and John Tavares. I think they're ready to go sicko mode.
Okay.
I think that it's time for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think they are ready with all of the additions they've made, with the maturity that they've shown, with the adaptation, and frankly, with who they've got at the helm, coaching.
Yeah.
I think this is a difference maker year, and I think they make the finals.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Colorado just because they're freaking amazing. I think it's gonna
nothing more than that.
Hard matchup with Vegas, Colorado. But I do think that Colorado just has that depth. They've got that mentality. They've got the players who can get the job done that I don't see anyone in the West stopping them.
Okay.
And that's my finals.
Okay. My finals will be a rematch of 2023, Vegas and Florida.
Okay.
I mentioned the stuff with Florida. They played a lot of hockey. And they've had some injury issues and blah, blah, blah. But I just think these 2 teams are specifically the most suited to playoff hockey for me. They have very good goaltending. They have D that are big and that can skate and that are physical. And they have centers, tons of center depth, and centers that are very good defensively and put stuff on the score sheet as well. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Florida too much.
Mm-hmm.
And Vegas was my pick earlier. I picked them in our New Year's show to win the cup, and so I'm not gonna fall away from that. And I don't. They're such a strong playoff team. Mm-hmm. As long as they're fully healthy, I'm going to go Vegas beats Florida in the Cup again for the second time. And Florida makes the final 3 years in a row. But they just kind of run out of gas again, like they did the first time, just with injury issues and but both these teams are just similar and they play that style and it's a mean game and it's suited for the playoffs. And listen, I think it'd be a toss up between Florida and Tampa. Tampa could very well win that series. And even again in the next round, obviously it would be Florida and Toronto in this case, and any team can win that series. But I just think Florida has something that nobody else in the East has. They're just something. There's something up here. It's just like a mentality thing. They just believe, and you toss Brad Marchand into that mix, right? And you get Seth Jones, a little bit of help on the back end. There's just something about them. And I think too many people are sleeping on them. A lot of people are saying Tampa's going to be the team.
Yeah.
Which is very possible. Don't get me wrong. But I think Vegas, the division is a little weak. So they can probably steamroll through those first 2 rounds. Not it's the NHL playoffs. There's no walkovers here, but a little weaker than what the rest of the teams have to play against. And then they have it'll be a tough West final. I think they'll play Colorado in the West final. Yeah. It'll be a tough series and then a tough final. But Florida's got to play. They got to play Tampa in the first round. They have to play Toronto in the second round. And then either it will be probably Washington or Carolina, in my view. I say Carolina.
You think Carolina?
Yeah. But just all hard series to get to the final for Florida. Whereas not to say that like Minnesota and LA and Edmonton aren't difficult teams, but I think they're not as. It won't be as much of a toll on Vegas as it will be as Florida. Yeah, which is what happened in 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all we got for the playoff preview. You got anything else?
Go Leafs go.
I got something. Congrats to Rory McIlroy. Finally Masters champion. If you're not a golf fan, he's only the 6th person to ever win all 4 majors in golf. So, congrats to him. And he's finally gotten over that hump at the Masters. What a final round that was.
And to do it in a playoff.
In a playoff. Yeah, in a playoff. Yeah, good for him. Do we want to do the quiz? Or we're running long?
We're running long. So we have a place to be soon.
Yeah.
We gotta get ready for. So I think we
All right. Well, we'll skip the quiz this week. It was a long one. We'll be back next week. It'll be the thick of round 1.
Oh, so excited for the first.
NHL playoffs. Here we go.